Chapter 117. 2000 low-rank soulstones and a low-rank Earthrealm martial art. If Yi Chen said he was not tempted, he would be lying. 2000 low-rank soulstones would be worth 8 to 900,000 gold in the Northwest auction house, and a low-rank Earthrealm martial art could be sold for millions of gold. Most of the small families in the Windy Nation might not be able to buy one even if they sold all their assets. Of course, the potential of the number one inner disciple was indeed worth this price, and the martial institutions did not lack martial arts. After all, a martial institution that had hundreds of years of history, it would be unreasonable for them not to have some martial arts. However, Yi Chen also knew that even if an outsider offered 10 million gold, the top management of the martial institution would not agree to sell a martial art. Martial arts were not to be shared with outsiders. However, after hearing the latter part of the message, Yi Chen paused a bit. Follow the congratulatory team to the Emerald Martial Palace in 1 month? This was out of his expectation, but he did not care too much about it. Whether he went or not, it was all arranged by the top management. All he needed to do was to follow. The Silent Hills. In a vast mountain range, the fog never dissipated, and there was miasma everywhere. Deep in the mountains, there were often beast roars that could shake people's hearts. The sun was hanging high in the sky, and the golden light was blocked out by the fog. At first glance, there were colorful lights everywhere, bright and creepy. This was deep in the Silent Hills, and the natural yuan qi was especially rich. However, because of the miasma, warriors could not absorb it, or else they would go crazy. On a small hill that was split open by something, Yi Chen stood with his hands behind his back, with an ancient-looking long sword hanging on his waist. He looked down and saw that in the fog hundreds of meters away, 2 huge shadows were colliding with each other from time to time, making earth-shaking noises. A horrifying roar was heard. Dozens of trees in front of him were knocked down, and a house-sized demonic wolf was blown towards him. The demonic wolf had no fur, and its body was covered with sharp thorns, which made its body 3 times bigger, and its blood-red pupils looked like it was about to drip blood. Bramble demonic wolf, top rank 4 beast. No matter how hard the wind blew, Yi Chen's body did not move, only his clothes were fluttering. Dong 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 dong, the ground shook, and a silver-grey demonic bull that was even bigger than the bramble demon wolf walked out of the mist step by step. Its cold and merciless eyes first locked on the bramble demon wolf, and then looked at where Yi Chen was. Moo! The silver-grey demonic bull roared into the sky, and the mist twisted violently. Electric currents appeared on the surface of the nearby fallen leaves, burning them into nothingness. Yi Chen was slightly surprised. It was actually a rare silver electric demon bull. This was an existence even more dangerous than the bramble demon wolf. No wonder the bramble demon wolf couldn't beat it. The 2 demonic beasts were the size of a house. Their demonic aura soared to the sky, stirring up terrifying whirlwinds. 2 peak level 4 demonic beasts should be good for training. If the others knew what Yi Chen was thinking, they would definitely say that he was just talking nonsense. Demonic beasts were already much more powerful than warriors of the same level. Even the most talented warrior might not be able to win against a demonic beast, not to mention 2 top-rank 4 demonic beasts, which were equivalent to peak-level late condensing reality realm warriors. The bramble demon wolf looked at the silver electric demonic bull in fear. It lowered its body slightly. Its instinct told it that it had to kill any human that came in here. But the silver electric demonic bull in front of it was much more dangerous than this human. If it was not careful, it would be killed. Roar! 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 The bramble demon wolf roared at the silver electric demonic bull, as if it was sending some kind of message. After a while, the silver electric demonic bull let out an electric current from its nose. It stomped on the ground twice, and unexpectedly rushed out. Shoo! The silver electric demonic bull's huge body did not slow it down. Like a thick silver electric light, it rushed towards Yi Chen, who was on the hill. At the same time, the bramble demon wolf also attacked Yi Chen, its body rammed towards the hill. Piss off! Clang! The hidden cloud sword was unsheathed, and its momentum was unpredictable. It easily hit the silver electric demonic bull's body. The silver electric demonic bull's fierce eyes were filled with shock. Its huge body flew back, smashing many old vines that were full of ancient trees. Boom! The hill under its feet collapsed, and the bramble demon wolf jumped out from the rubble. It opened its mouth and spat out a cloud of black air mixed with ice. Yi Chen's feet lightly touched the rubble that had not yet fallen, and his body rose straight up. A sword chi, like a dragon from the 9 heavens, crazily shot down towards the bramble demon wolf. The bramble demon wolf was the same as the silver electric demonic bull. It did not expect Yi Chen's sword art to be so powerful. Its body flipped in the air and crashed into the flying boulders to avoid the sharp sword chi. Cloud impermanence, startling cloud, where do you think you can hide? With one punch, the bramble demon wolf's black air was shattered by the fist energy. The countless ice cubes were shattered by the fist energy, turning into ice shards that sprinkled down from the sky. Below, the sword chi, which was originally moving in a straight line, twisted a few times. Unexpectedly, like the clouds in the sky, it had no form, and slashed at the back of the bramble demon wolf. Crack! A few thorns were cut down, and the bramble demon wolf lost its balance and fell heavily on the ground, creating a huge pit. Crack! Silver lightning shot out from the side. It was the silver electric demonic bull that did not give up. Its speed was like lightning, and its sound was like thunder. It was as fast as lightning, burning the air in front of it into a vacuum. Startling cloud. Yi Chen waved out a thick sword chi in the air. The sword chi was extremely aggressive. Wherever it went, the air was swept away, filled with endless explosive power. The silver electric demonic bull opened its mouth and spat out a ball of lightning, which clashed with the sword chi. Crack! Crack! The lightning was all broken, and the sword chi slashed on the silver electric demonic bull's forehead, leaving a deep sword mark that could reach the bone, and blood was flowing out. In the next moment, the silver electric demon cow lost its balance and fell headfirst to the ground, causing it to shake incessantly. Even the electricity around its body leaked out, causing the burnt ground to crack and turn black. Clumps of fertile weeds were burned to ashes. Suddenly climbing up from the ground, the silver electric demonic bull looked at Yi Chen with fear, not daring to attack again. Although its defense was very strong, it was not strong enough to ignore the sword chi. If it got hit too much, it would still be in danger. On the side, the bramble demon wolf could not help but lean towards the silver electric demonic bull, as if it was ready to join forces with it to attack and kill this powerful human. Earth Realm low-rank sword art, indeed powerful. Lightly landing on an ancient tree, Yi Chen looked down at the sword body and thought to himself. It had been more than half a month since the end of the ranking competition. Half a month ago, Yi Chen chose a sword art from many Earthrealm low-rank martial arts, called the Startling Cloud Sword Art. The clouds were unpredictable, and so was the Startling Cloud Sword Art. Every movement was full of changes, and even the cultivator could not completely control it, not to mention the opponent. In addition, the Startling Cloud Sword Art was also a very aggressive sword art. Once the sword was thrown out, the wind would stop and the clouds would be startled. Its lethality was extremely horrifying, and it was many times more powerful and faster than the lone peak of 13 swords. After training it, Yi Chen went to the Silent Hills alone, wanting to test the power of the sword art on the beasts. This battle was indeed powerful. Chapter 118. Not far away, the silver electric demonic cow and the bramble demon wolf roared at the same time, attacking towards Yi Chen from both sides. One of them was as fast as lightning, while the other one was as agile as a black smoke. Boom! The ancient tree was uprooted, and a huge amount of soil was sent flying in the air. Yi Chen jumped into the air, and threw out a sword chi backhandedly. Puff! A deep sword mark appeared on the bramble demon wolf's back leg, and its body quickly fell onto the ground. It slid hundreds of meters away due to the inertia, and finally stopped after hitting another ancient tree. Standing up, the bramble demon wolf shook its dizzy head, and stared at Yi Chen with a slight fear in its eyes. This human didn't seem to be very powerful, but up until now, it and the silver electric demonic cow still couldn't do anything to him. Instead, it was covered in dust, and its back leg was injured. If this continued, it and the silver electric demonic cow would probably be killed before they could kill Yi Chen. The silver electric demonic cow also wanted to retreat, But the bramble demon wolf hadn't retreated yet, so how could it retreat? I have almost understood the power of the sky cloud sword art. Now it's time to take care of them. Before, Yi Chen didn't use his half-step sword intent, and those sword chi were only normal sword chi. Turning around, Yi Chen waved his sword twice, and 2 sword chi that had been infused with the half-step sword intent were thrown out. Puff, puff. A sword hole appeared on the foreheads of the silver electric demonic cow and the bramble demon wolf respectively. Their huge bodies fell heavily onto the ground, and no longer breathing. Without the protection of the beast chi, the bodies of the demonic beasts weren't as hard as expected, and were easily cut open. Inside each body was a bowl-sized pellet. The pellet of a top-rank 4 demonic beast was worth over 10,000 gold, and was put into Yi Chen's storage ring by Yi Chen. After that, some valuable demonic beast materials were also collected by Yi Chen. After that, Yi Chen stood up straight and looked at the deepest part of the Silent Hills. That was a true forbidden area. A few decades ago, a powerful force had sent experts to the depths to search for some rare and precious herbs. Unfortunately, they encountered a level 7 demonic beast, the ghost-face demonic cow. Out of more than 100 people, only 1 person managed to escape, but he died a few days later. The reason was that the demonic chi in his body was too strong, and he died of madness. Since then, no one dared to enter. A rank 7 demonic beast. Yi Chen could not imagine it at all, since it was equivalent to an astral-reaching realm warrior. Not to mention Yi Chen, even the leaders of the top 5 martial institutions would not be able to handle a single attack from it. But, it was hard to say whether it was true or not, since besides the rumors, no one had actually seen it with their own eyes. The only survivor from decades ago had already gone insane when he came out. Shaking his head, Yi Chen leaned to the side and leaped onto an ancient tree that was over 100 feet tall. With a few flashes, he disappeared without a trace. Not long after Yi Chen left, a figure shot through the mist. Pap! Lightly stepping on the ground, the middle-aged man saw the 2 demonic beast corpses lying on the ground. He couldn't help but curse, "I finally found out where this brat went. Who would have thought that he would go to the deepest part of the Silent Hills? The mist here is so thick that people can't even look at it directly. You can't tell anything from 100 steps away. Otherwise, how could I let him leave safely? I would have killed him on the spot." This man was indeed Zhu Liang, the middle-aged man who had watched the inner disciple ranking competition of the Sky Cloud Martial School half a month ago. At the same time, he was also the intelligence master of the Purple Sun Martial School. He had sent his warriors to guard the bottom of the Windy Mountain, ready to kill Yi Chen the moment he went out alone. However, after Yi Chen went down the mountain, he went straight into the Silent Hills. By the time Zhu Liang heard the news, it was already too late. He could only follow and try his luck to see if he could run into Yi Chen. "Brat, you sure are lucky. But next time, you will die for sure." Zhu Liang's eyes were filled with killing intent. Roar. Right at this moment, a majestic roar sounded. Following that, the sky suddenly darkened. Dark clouds covered the sky, covering the radiance of the fiery sun. Such a powerful beast chi. It is at least a level 6 beast. Zhu Liang's face was full of fear. He hurried to run away. Far away, a beam of black light that was as thick as a water bucket shot out. Along the way, trees collapsed and mountains were pierced. The aftermath of the black light swept out a deep ravine that extended straight into the earth. The speed of the black light was too fast. Zhu Liang had no time to dodge. He roared, and a burning light suddenly rose from his body, protecting him tightly. Boom! The burning light was shattered. Zhu Liang was bleeding from every orifice, and his clothes were torn. "Little bastard, this beast must have been provoked by you." Zhu Liang came without a sound, so he did not attract any beast's attention. Thinking about it, he realized that the battle between Yi Chen and the beast was too loud, and it had attracted more powerful beasts from the deeper parts of the Silent Hills. Zhu Liang had become the scapegoat. Without caring about his wounded body, Zhu Liang pushed his Jin Qi as hard as he could. His body turned into a burning light and shot far away. At the same time, he threw a dark red pellet into his mouth. After a while, The source of the black light finally appeared in the distance. Its huge body was standing in the middle of the hills. It was tens of meters tall, and it was a huge black python. If the mist was gone, people would see a shocking scene from the sky. A ravine stretched from dozens of miles away to here. In other words, the black light was shot from dozens of miles away. Such a terrifying range was unheard of. If it was a little closer, whether Zhu Liang could survive or not would be a problem. After all, the attack power of the black light would definitely be reduced if it was too far away. Seeing that the aura had disappeared, the black python bumped the mountain next to it with its huge head. The mountain shook a few times, and a few huge cracks appeared on the wall, making a cracking sound. Lowering its towering upper body, the giant black python slithered back in the direction it came from, crushing ancient trees one after another. Among the thousands of mountains, there was a magnificent valley. The valley was full of trees, and there were lakes of different sizes, just like the stars in the sky. In a yard next to a lake, 3 young girls were sitting and chatting. Sister G, have you heard about the inner disciple ranking competition that was held in the Sky Cloud Martial School half a month ago? The round-faced girl in green clothes suddenly asked. The beautiful girl with an aloof temperament said indifferently, "Is that so? I don't think there is anyone worth paying attention to in the Sky Cloud Martial School." The pretty girl next to her nodded and said, "The Sky Cloud Martial School is ranked last among the top 5 martial institutions. The top 10 inner disciples are only as powerful as the inner disciples of our Emerald Martial Palace, and the top 10 inner disciples of our Emerald Martial Palace are only as powerful as the core disciples in the Sky Cloud Martial School." The round-faced girl said, "I heard that there are 2 geniuses in this year's Sky Cloud Martial School. One is called Meng Chong, and the other is called Yi Chen. They are both at the top of the core disciples in the Sky Cloud Martial School." Yi Chen. The beautiful girl and the pretty girl looked at the round-faced girl in surprise. The round-faced girl asked confusedly, "What's wrong?" The pretty girl asked, "How is that Yi Chen? He beat Meng Chong, who was the top 10 inner disciples in the last year's Sky Cloud Martial School, and won the first place. I heard that he is very powerful." The beautiful girl was slightly surprised, but she didn't care about it anymore. So what if he was the top 10 inner disciples in the Sky Cloud Martial School? She was now one of the 4 core disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace. There was no comparison between them. The round-faced girl continued, that Yi Chen is not only very powerful, but he has also mastered the half-step sword intent. Right now, everyone in the Windy Nation is talking about him. What? The pretty girl and the beautiful girl couldn't believe it. They subconsciously thought that the 2 of them only had the same name, and could not be the Yi Chen they knew. Chapter 119. Days passed by. When there were only 10 days left until the 9th of July, Yi Chen felt a bit strange. Why hadn't the higher-ups prepared to go to the Emerald Martial Palace yet? The Emerald Martial Palace was 70,000 miles away from the Sky Cloud Martial School. Even if he rode the half-beast horse, the Ghost-Eye Jade Lion, it would still take him 13 to 14 days to get there. Just like that, another 5 days passed. Yi Chen didn't care about going to the Emerald Martial Palace anymore. Since the higher-ups weren't in a hurry, why should he? The Emerald Martial Palace was not a place he wanted to go. The 7th of July. Yi Chen was training his Jin Qi in the yard. He was only 1 step away from the late condensing reality realm. Although it was impossible for him to make a breakthrough in a short period of time, he still wanted to give it a try. After all, for him, the difference between the peak of the mid-condensing reality realm and the late condensing reality realm was too huge. At least if he could reach the same cultivation level, he would be able to compete with all the young warriors, even if he had to face young Master North Snow or young Master Duanmu. Crack. The low-rank soul stone in his hand cracked into 2 pieces. Yi Chen opened his eyes with a regretful look on his face. With his current cultivation level, it was still too difficult for him to make a breakthrough. It would still take him a while to reach the late condensing reality realm. Bang bang bang. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. Yi Chen thought it was Wu Zongming, so he yelled, "Coming." Opening the door of the yard, a young man that Yi Chen had never seen before appeared in front of him, wearing black clothes. "I am the executor disciple." The head elder asked me to inform you that it is time to go to the Emerald Martial Palace. Go to the welcoming plaza now. The young man said indifferently. Yi Chen was surprised. Go now. Can I get there in 2 days? Shaking his head, Yi Chen didn't understand, so he responded, all right, I will go now. The executor disciple left. Yi Chen went back to his room, prepared a few sets of clothes and some necessities, then cleaned the room a bit, closed the door and walked to the welcoming plaza. On the grand and flat welcoming plaza, 4 people were standing there. The 2 people in the middle were the first elder, who was over 60 years old, and the 4th elder, who had a sturdy body. The sense of power released from their bodies was as deep as the ocean. One of them was Luo Hanshan, who was wearing a blue robe, and the other one was Xu Jing, who was wearing a white robe. Great Elder, 4th Elder. Yi Chen saluted the 2 elders. The Great Elder smiled and said, Yi Chen, have you made any progress this month? Hearing him, a smile also appeared on the 4th Elder's face. They had already heard about how fast Yi Chen had improved. 1 year ago, he was still a mortal realm stage 6 warrior, and now, he had already reached the peak of mid-condensing reality realm. Not to mention that he had a great comprehensive ability, he had mastered all the martial arts he had learned to the highest level. Bringing him to the Emerald Martial Palace this time was more or less to gain some face for the Sky Cloud Martial School. Otherwise, it would have been better to bring other core disciples. After all, compared to the top 5 core disciples, Yi Chen's foundation was still a bit weak. Yi Chen said, I haven't made much progress in my cultivation, but I've just learned the shocking cloud swordsmanship. You can't rush to raise your cultivation. What? You've learned the shocking cloud swordsmanship? The 4th elder slightly nodded, then he was shocked and stared at Yi Chen in shock. Yi Chen nodded. He didn't need to hide this kind of thing. Not to mention, with the attention he was getting now, he wouldn't be able to keep it a secret for too long. Lu Hanshan was shocked. Learning the shocking cloud swordsmanship in only a month. What kind of abnormal martial arts talent was this? The shocking cloud swordsmanship was a low-rank Earth Realm sword art. Ordinary people might not even be able to learn it in 5 years. If it were Lu Hanshan himself, it would take him at least half a year. In the entire Sky Cloud Martial School, perhaps only Zhu Mai could learn it in 3 to 4 months. However, compared to Yi Chen, the gap was not just a little bit, it was double or triple. The Great Elder couldn't believe it. Martial artists who have learned the shocking cloud swordsmanship will have a strong shocking cloud sword aura when they are fighting. He didn't continue his words, because Yi Chen's temperament suddenly changed. Wave after wave of illusory sword aura gushed out. His whole body seemed like a treasured sword that had been unsheathed. His sword aura was unstable, but it was filled with a horrifying explosive power. It is indeed the shocking cloud swordsmanship. I can't believe he can use it so easily. The Great Elder gasped in shock. He realized that he had underestimated Yi Chen after all. However, he couldn't blame himself, because a genius who had mastered the half-step sword intent was not someone he could easily guess. Among the 3 of them, only Xu Jing didn't seem to be surprised. Caw. At this moment, a high-pitched bird song came from the top of the windy mountain. The bird song was short and high-pitched, along with a majestic aura. Yi Chen looked towards the direction of the sound and was surprised. On the precipitous peak, a giant bird swooped down. This giant bird had a majestic physique, and its wingspan was more than 10 meters. Its entire body was covered in dark green feathers, and under the sunlight, it glowed with a metallic luster. Its pair of claws could easily grab a house, and they were curved like an anchor. Lu Hanshan introduced the bird to Yi Chen. This is the guardian spirit beast of our Sky Cloud Martial School, Wind Vulture. Wind Vulture. Yi Chen had heard of this name before. In the easternmost area of the Windy Nation, there was a great devil grassland. There were countless demonic beasts living on the grassland, among which the half-demon horse, the ghost-eye jade lion, was the most famous one. However, people living near the grassland didn't think so. In their eyes, the most famous demonic beast was the king of the Great Devil Grassland, the 5th-level Wind Vulture. The Wind Vulture could travel over 40,000 miles per day, it was as fast as lightning, and was over 10 times faster than the half-demon horse. It was perfect for traveling, But it was not easy to catch it. Although it was only a 5th-level demonic beast, which was equivalent to a mid-clasping Yuan realm martial artist, even a late-clasping Yuan realm martial artist might not be able to catch up with it. Besides, even if a late-clasping Yuan realm martial artist managed to catch it, it would be extremely difficult to tame it. Yi Chen didn't expect that the Sky Cloud Martial School had a 5th-level wind vulture. No wonder they weren't in a hurry to go to the Emerald Martial School. With the wind vulture's speed, it would only take them 2 days to get there. Not only would it save them a lot of time and effort, it would also show the school's prestige. Whoosh! A fierce gust of wind blew, and the wind vulture landed in the middle of the plaza. The head elder said, "Come on up." After saying that, the head elder flashed across the air and landed on the wind vulture's broad and flat back. When everyone had boarded the wind vulture, the head elder reminded them, "Hold on, the wind vulture is very fast." Luo Hanshan grinned and said, "Head elder is right. The first time I rode on the wind vulture, I almost fell from the sky. It's unbelievably fast." Hearing this, Yi Chen and Xu Jing didn't dare to be careless. They both silently activated their Zhen Qi. Whoosh! Whoosh! The wind vulture fiercely flapped its wings for a few times, then suddenly leaped up into the air like a sharp arrow. The wind vulture's wings were tucked behind its back to reduce the air resistance. The speed of the wind vulture, which was close to the sound barrier, was unimaginably fast, as if it was riding on a rocket. The air that was blowing towards its face was no different than a sharp knife, cutting its skin. Yi Chen planted his feet on the ground, and activated his protective Zhen Qi to protect his face from the knife-like air currents. Soon, the wind vulture flew high up into the clouds, flying far away. Chapter 120. Above the ocean of clouds, the wind vulture flapped its wings and flew hundreds of meters away. The shrill, long-lasting sonic booms behind it didn't reach anyone's ears, because the wind vulture's flying speed had already surpassed the speed of sound. The head elder and the 4th elder were standing in front of the wind eagle's back like 2 towering mountains, relieving most of the pressure on Yi Chen and the other 2. Otherwise, only the strong airflow caused by the supersonic speed of the eagle could easily blow them away and make them fall from the sky. "Brother Yi, you have to be mentally prepared for this trip to the Emerald Martial Palace. I believe you also know why the higher-ups want you to come with us." Xu Jing abruptly used her Zhen Qi to talk to Yi Chen. Yi Chen nodded. "Why isn't senior sister Zhu Mai here? None of the head disciples from the top 4 martial institutions will go there, unless one of them has reached the clasping Yuan realm and is on par with young Master Emerald." "I see." Yi Chen thought for a while and realized that Zhu Mai was right. If Zhu Mai went, she would inevitably be compared with young Master Emerald. But now, she didn't want to go. So, everyone could only compare the second disciples of each martial institution. Just then, the 4th elder said to Yi Chen and the other 2 with his Zhen Qi, "There is a large number of flesh demons in front of us. Be careful not to get sucked into them." Flesh demon? Yi Chen froze for a second. This was a kind of demonic beast that floated in the air without any intelligence. It was shaped like a huge meatball and had a lot of scary-looking mouths. Normally, 3 mouths would be a rank 1 meat beast, 6 mouths would be a rank 2 meat beast, 9 mouths would be a rank 3 meat beast, and so on and so forth. Flesh demons usually lived by inhaling and exhaling the chi of heaven and earth. Occasionally, they would eat meat. Before he could think about it, disgusting meatballs appeared in the vast sea of clouds in front of him. These meatballs were brownish-red in color, and their bodies were covered with mouths with sharp teeth. The largest one was no different from a small mountain, and the smallest one was the size of a water buffalo. They floated in the air with the wind, and if a flying beast passed by, they would open their mouths and release a terrifying suction force, swallowing it into their stomachs. Sky-burning palm. The wind vulture was incredibly fast. Seeing that it was about to break into the group of meat spirit beasts, the 4th elder let out a resonant growl and pushed his palm out. Rumble. A large number of flesh demons exploded and were burned into nothingness. The shockwave even tore a large hole in the sea of clouds. Yi Chen was secretly shocked. Late-clasping Yuan realm martial artists are indeed extraordinary. Every single move of theirs has the destructive power to destroy mountains. Suddenly, the wind vulture swayed intensely and slowed down. The few of them turned their heads to look. Unbeknownst to them, a meatball the size of a small hill had appeared on their right rear. The largest mouth on the meatball was wide open, sucking in the air and the sea of clouds in a spiral. It was like a huge bottomless pit, swallowing everything. Yi Chen and the other two had low cultivation bases, so they were about to be sucked out. The first elder made his move. He raised the index and middle fingers of his right hand and drew a line in the air. Poochie. A purplish-golden ray of light extended out. It was as sharp as a blade, and it split the meatball into two. The cut was smooth, without a trace of roughness. The fourth elder said in admiration, "A fifth-grade meat beast's defensive power is even more terrifying than a real mountain. It seems that your purple light finger has already reached the highest level. It can cut a mountain as if it was nothing. Ah, it took me over 10 years to reach the highest level of this mid-rank Earthrealm finger art. I can't compare with you." The first elder gave a bitter smile. Yi Chen was speechless. The first elder was obviously talking about him. Hearing him, the fourth elder was speechless again. He had seen all kinds of geniuses, but he had never seen a genius who could learn a low-rank Earthrealm martial art within a month. What a freak! Above another piece of sea of clouds, a hazy white light flashed like a bolt of lightning. It seemed to be able to travel a mile within a blink of an eye. If one looked carefully, one would be able to see that the white light was actually a huge white bird. The white bird had a strong and muscular body, with a pair of dark yellow claws under its belly. There were 4 people standing on the back of the white bird. The leading 2 were over 40 years old. They were wearing white robes with golden edges and snowflake patterns on the cuffs. Behind the 2 were 2 young men. The one on the left had a strong and muscular build. He was a head taller than the 2 in front. His eyes were extremely sharp and aggressive, as if he was being attacked by a heavy blade. The one on the right looked ordinary, wearing white robes. If he was thrown into a crowd, it would be hard to find him. However, when one looked at his eyes, one would feel that he was not ordinary at all. His pure crystal-like eyes gave people a soul-stirring feeling. The blade light seemed to be invisible, it seemed to be able to transform into the blade intent. It was indeed the North Snow Quick Blade Lynch. As for the strong and muscular teenager, he was the second core disciple of the North Snow Martial Academy, Blade Yu. We, the North Snow Martial Academy, never liked to fight. But even though we don't like to fight, it's still a shame to fall behind others. You too have to work hard. The middle-aged man on the right reminded them with a smile on his face. Yu chuckled and said, "I admit that I am no match for Zhuang Fei. But except for him, I, Yu, am not afraid of anyone in the younger generation of the Windy Nation." At this moment, the bearded middle-aged man, who seemed to be the leader of the group, sighed and said, "In recent years, the North Snow Martial Academy has started to lose its strength. There haven't been any outstanding geniuses appearing in the ranking competitions of the inner disciples. However, the Sky Cloud Martial School is quite lucky. They actually have a disciple who has mastered the half-step sword intent." Lynch's eyes lit up. He was believed by the leader of the group, Shui Wuren, to be the one who had the highest chance of mastering the blade intent. Now that he knew that there was a disciple who had mastered the half-step sword intent and was only 1 step away from mastering the real sword intent, he was a bit excited. The rain was pouring down. A loach-like black-scaled demonic beast was swimming in the sea of clouds. Every time it lurked and reappeared, it would be several hundred meters away. Coupled with its huge body and terrifying appearance, ordinary people would think that a legendary evil dragon had appeared in the world and was going to harm the human world. "Junior Sister Yuan, you've made great progress in the past few months. Otherwise, we wouldn't have asked you to come with us to the Emerald Martial Palace." There were 5 people standing on the beast's head. A young man with an umbrella said to the tall girl with a smile. The tall girl had a pretty face and a pair of straight and long legs. If Yi Chen were here, he would definitely recognize her. She was indeed Yuan Shuemei, who had helped the Ling family with the mission. Compared to a few months ago, her qi was much more powerful. Obviously, she had made great progress. Yuan Shuemei smiled lightly and said, "I think the elders want me to see the world. Plus, following Brother Nangong will definitely not be a bad thing." How come all the female disciples of the Rudra martial school are so talkative? I am the only one who is dumb. The young man with the umbrella said sarcastically. Hee hee. Yuan Shuemei laughed. Caw. From afar, an ear-piercing beast roar came out, shaking the sea of clouds. The elder of the Rudra martial school, who was standing in the front, raised his head and looked over, but couldn't see anything. He murmured to himself, "It should be the double-headed Bat King from the Purple Sun martial school, it is quite farce." A few hundred miles away from the black-scaled demon beast, a black-red two-headed bat with a wingspan of more than 10 meters swept across the sky. On the back of the bat, 4 people were standing. One of them was Ouyang Ming, who had a conflict with Yi Chen in the Northwest auction house. Beside him was a short and skinny teenager, who looked very ordinary, even a bit ugly, which formed a sharp contrast with Ouyang Ming. Piercing through the sea of clouds, the 4 of them rushed towards the southwest. Chapter 121. July 8th, afternoon. The wind vulture darted out of the clouds and lowered its speed to below the speed of sound. Yi Chen only felt his vision brighten, and the mountains and rivers below were all imprinted in his eyes. But very quickly, he was dumbfounded. In the area of 500 kilometers below, the mountain peaks rose and fell without end. Some were lofty and majestic, some were verdant and elegant, some were shaped like dragons, and some were crouching like tigers. The dense energy of heaven and earth converged into a thin layer of mist that coiled around the peaks of the mountain peaks, and it gave off a special feeling of immortality. Between the mountains were lakes of various sizes. Looking down from above, the smallest of the lakes was only the size of a fingernail. They were scattered all over the place, and they were of various colors. At a glance, it was impossible to tell how many there were. In the center of this area, dozens of precipitous mountain peaks converged to form a valley. The color of the valley was dark green, like the primordial jadeite formed by heaven and earth, exquisite without losing its grandeur. Looking inside, there were hundreds of lakes of various sizes in the valley. Buildings were built around the lakes in an orderly fashion, contrasting with the environment outside the valley, forming a large and a small scene. What a wonderful place! Yi Chen opened his mouth and spat out these words. Luo Hanshan explained to Yi Chen, there are a total of 1,332 mountains and 9,800 lakes around the Emerald Martial Palace, which is known as the 1,000 Mountains and 10,000 Rivers. Apart from this, on the mountains that form the Emerald Martial Palace, there is a kind of stone called fragrant jade, which emits a nice aroma all year round, and is called jade fragrance. Combining these two, it becomes the famous 1,000 Mountains and 10,000 Rivers, jade fragrance. Once the martial artists from the Windy Nation and even other nations mention this name, they will definitely think of the rank 7 martial institution, the Emerald Martial Palace. Yi Chen praised, thousands of mountains and tens of thousands of rivers, jadeite fragrance lingers, it really makes one daydream. The head elder snorted coldly and said, it is indeed a paradise, but the Emerald Martial Palace is only a latecomer. 3,000 years ago, the rank 6 martial institution, mountain and water pavilion, used to occupy this place. That's right. Back then, the Emerald Martial Palace was just a small, unranked martial institution. The first leader of the Emerald Martial Palace accidentally found the ruins of the Mountain and Water Pavilion, and found the incomplete, great art of mountain and water, from there. He trained hard for more than 10 years, and once he was born, he became famous in the martial world, and built a solid foundation for the Emerald Martial Palace. The 4th elder's voice was filled with envy and passion. It was a remnant of the great art of landscape. It seemed to be very powerful. Yi Chen thought. The wind vulture flew over thousands of mountains and rivers, arriving at the entrance of the Emerald Valley. The entrance of the valley had a radius of hundreds of zhong, and the terrain was flat. Quite a few famous warriors had entered the valley in groups, and some important ones had also come on the back of their beasts, just like the Sky Cloud Martial School. But of course, the mounts of their beasts were obviously not as good as the wind vultures. The wind vulture landed on the ground along with a fierce gale. An outer elder of the Emerald Martial Palace walked up to them with 4 deacons. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for not going out to greet you. The head elder let the wind vulture move freely, then grinned and said, "It seems that we've arrived first. Haha, the Sky Cloud Martial School has been very high profile recently. You're number one in everything, but what's the point of fighting for number one in small matters?" The double-headed giant bat flew over quickly, and the middle-aged man in the lead opened his mouth and said. The fourth elder's face was filled with displeasure. The middle-aged man's name was Zhu Li, and he was about the same age as the first elder. Because he practiced a special cultivation technique, he looked to be in his 40s, and his qi and blood were vigorous. Taking a deep breath, the fourth elder raised his voice and said, "I didn't believe it at first. It turns out that people from the Purple Sun Martial House all have loud voices. I heard your roar from tens of miles away. Having a loud voice isn't a bad thing. I'm just afraid that some people don't have the energy to shout loudly." The two-headed bat landed on the ground. Zhu Li took the lead and walked down. "Look. The Sky Cloud Martial School and the Purple Sun Martial School are arguing again. Among the top 5 martial institutions, the Purple Sun Martial School and the Sky Cloud Martial School have the most grievances. I heard that when the Sky Cloud Martial School was encircling the remaining forces of the Nine Evil Cult, the Purple Sun Martial School set up a trap for the Sky Cloud Martial School, causing a lot of powerful martial artists of the Sky Cloud Martial School to suffer heavy casualties. After a few years, the Sky Cloud Martial School was reduced to a rank 9 martial institution. However, the Sky Cloud Martial School was not a force to be trifled with. They released fake news and tricked the previous leader of the Purple Sun Martial School to the place where the remaining forces of the Nine Evil Cult gathered, causing him to die without a complete corpse. There's such a secret. No wonder the two forces have always been like fire and water. Many people nearby were discussing in low voices. Normally, people from the Emerald Martial Palace would be happy to see the two forces fighting each other to the death. However, this was the territory of the Emerald Martial Palace, and tomorrow was the celebration banquet. If they really let them fight, the Emerald Martial Palace would lose all of its face. A few outer elders of the Emerald Martial Palace hurriedly said, "Your accommodations have been prepared, please follow us." Zhu Li flicked his sleeves and left. Ouyang Ming, who was behind him, threw a meaningful glance at Yi Chen. On the other side, the head elder's anger disappeared. He said to Yi Chen and the others, "Let's go." After the two groups of people had left, it suddenly started raining. The black-scaled beast carried the people from the Rudra Martial School to this place. Inside the Emerald Martial Palace, numerous lakes appeared in front of them, all calm and peaceful. The Emerald Martial Palace is indeed a rank 7 martial institution. It is indeed a beautiful place. Wow, compared to this place, my place is like a mountain, totally not at the same level. The lotuses in the lake are all precious herbs, the green lotus. And those fishes, they are all rare ancient fishes. Hearing people's praises, Yi Chen had to admit that in terms of environment, the windy mountain of the Sky Cloud Martial School was miles ahead of the Emerald Martial Palace. It was not even worth mentioning. He wondered how the environment of the North Snow Martial Academy, which was also a rank 7 martial institution, would be. There were many people who came to congratulate the Emerald Martial Palace. Those who did not have much influence were basically arranged to stay near the lakes in the outer area of the Emerald Martial Palace, where there were many beautiful courtyards. Those who had some influence were arranged to stay in the inner area, where the environment was much better. As one of the top 5 martial institutions, the Sky Cloud Martial School was arranged to stay in the innermost area, which was close to the main buildings of the Emerald Martial Palace. On the road between the lakes, Yi Chen inadvertently glanced over, and a strange look flashed across his eyes. In front of him, a group of young men and women in green robes were talking and laughing. Judging from the Zhenqi vibration, they were not any weaker than the top-ranked inner disciples of the Sky Cloud Martial School. 2 of them were releasing immeasurable Zhenqi, which meant that they had obviously reached the level of the top-ranked core disciples of the Sky Cloud Martial School. The one on the left had a graceful figure and an extremely beautiful appearance, like an orchid in a deserted valley. Her every move attracted the thoughts of the male disciples. Standing next to her was a tall and straight male disciple. He was handsome and had a noble temperament. There was a faint aura of a king on his body. He was obviously not an ordinary person. Luo Hanshan, who was standing beside Yi Chen, recognized the beautiful girl. She was Ji Shuiyan, who had accompanied the palm-end Liu Wuxiang to visit the Sky Cloud Martial School half a year ago. She was a disciple of the Ji family, and judging from what had happened that day, she seemed to be closely related to Yi Chen. "Brother Yi, we have arrived at our place, let's go." Luo Hanshan patted on Yi Chen's shoulder. Yi Chen took back his sight, his expression didn't change at all. Led by an outer elder of the Emerald Martial Palace, the five of them walked towards the luxurious yard beside the huge lake. From afar, Ji Shuiyan saw that familiar silhouette and slightly frowned. The tall and handsome male disciple standing beside her asked with concern, "Sister Ji, what's wrong?" "Nothing. Brother Sha." Ji Shuiyan was sure that that man was Yi Chen. She didn't expect that after half a year, he, who was only at Mortal Realm Stage 6, had already reached such a high level. If that was all, she wouldn't have been too surprised. But what she didn't expect was that besides the rapid improvement of his cultivation, he had also mastered the half-step sword intent, which was the dream of every sword artist. In just a couple of days, the name Yi Chen had spread across the entire Windy Nation. Among all the martial artists, there wasn't a single person who didn't know about him. His fame had even caught up with the top and second disciples of all the top martial institutions. Chapter 122. The luxurious yard was called the Green Willow House. It had a main yard and 7 small yards. Yi Chen lived in the small yard on the east side. Obviously, the yard had been thoroughly cleaned. There was not a single leaf on the ground, the corners were clean, and the flowers in the small garden in the middle had also been carefully trimmed. Entering the room, Yi Chen saw that the tables and chairs were all shiny and clean, and had a faint aroma. After looking around for a while, Yi Chen walked out. When he walked past Xu Jing's yard, he heard a thunderous sound coming from inside. Yi Chen smiled. Xu Jing had always been a quiet girl, she would only cultivate when she had nothing to do. She rarely took the initiative to communicate with others. After their last meeting, Xu Jing only nodded to greet Yi Chen. Without disturbing her, Yi Chen started to walk away. Outside the yard was a sparkling lake. Every 100 meters around the lake, there was a yard that was as luxurious as the Green Willow House. Beside the lake, rows of willows were planted. The willows were touching the water surface, swaying along with the breeze. The Emerald Martial Palace is indeed a rank 7 institution. Even the place they use to receive their guests is so beautiful. Yi Chen took a deep breath. He felt that the natural yuan qi around him was much richer and purer than in the Windy Mountain. It was also easier to convert it into Jin qi. After enjoying the view for a while, Yi Chen was about to go back to his yard to cultivate. Yi Chen. A tall girl walked towards him along the lake. It was Yuan Shuamei from the Rudra Martial School. Yi Chen smiled. "Long time no see. How did you know I was here? Guests from influential institutions all live beside this lake. I saw you when I walked out of the yard." Yuan Shuamei stopped 3 meters in front of Yi Chen. Yi Chen nodded, then suddenly said in surprise, "You have reached the late condensing reality realm. Congratulations. There's nothing to congratulate me about. You, on the other hand, have improved a bit too fast. Not only have you reached the peak of the mid-condensing reality realm in just a few months, you have also managed to comprehend the half-step sword intent, which even I am jealous of. Sigh, comparisons are always odious." Yuan Shuamei said with admiration and admiration. Yi Chen rubbed his nose. The news travels fast. Of course. Yuan Shuamei rolled her eyes at Yi Chen and said, "Everything else is fine, but the fact that you've already comprehended the half-step sword intent is way too shocking. Even the leader of our Rudra Martial School had praised you as a top genius, a rare sword artist from the Windy Nation, and that you have a great chance to comprehend the true sword intent. You didn't call me just to praise me, did you?" Hearing him, Yuan Shuamei looked at Yi Chen with hope and said, "How did you master the half-step sword intent? Do you have any experience to share with me?" Just like Yi Chen, she was the #1 inner disciple of the Rudra Martial School. Her fighting power was no weaker than ordinary core disciples. If she could master a little bit of the sword intent, her power would definitely increase. Besides, if she could master a little bit of the sword intent, it would be much easier for her to step into the next level. Originally, she didn't have any plans, but the person who was closest to mastering the sword intent was Yi Chen. So it was better to ask him than to try and figure it out herself. Yi Chen smiled bitterly in his mind, so she came here for the sword intent. I don't really know much about the sword intent, but if you want to talk about experience, I do have some. Tell me about it. Yuan Shuemei's eyes lit up. Yi Chen said, the spirit, qi, and soul are perfectly merged into one point under the control of nature, and then released in the form of a sword. I think this should be the initial form of the sword intent. Of course, Yi Chen wouldn't say too much. In his words, there were not only the ancient explanations, but also his own thoughts. All in all, it was ambiguous and mysterious. Yuan Shuemei was lost in her thoughts. After a long while, she came back to her senses and said with a happy face, "Thank you so much. I can feel that the sword intent has become much clearer in my mind. Maybe I can really figure it out. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone about this." Even if Yi Chen didn't care about it, she wouldn't say it out loud. Everyone was selfish. If one less person could master the sword intent, they would feel superior. Yi Chen was surprised. Is it really that easy to understand? However, what he did not know was that the true spirit continent was full of martial arts, and there were a lot of things that were hard to understand. Compared to that, what he said was already very easy to understand. At least, for Yuan Shuemei, Yi Chen was already a powerful person in her heart. I can't take advantage of you for nothing. This is a sword manual, I found it by accident. Although it's very ordinary and doesn't have much value, it can be used as a guide for sword artists. Yuan Shuemei took out a thin book from her storage ring and handed it to Yi Chen. Yi Chen took it and took a look. On the cover of the book, there were 2 ancient characters, sword manual. All right, I'll go back and try to understand it. Yuan Shuemei immediately said goodbye. She was afraid that if she stayed here for too long, that trace of understanding would disappear. Watching Yuan Shuemei's back as she left, Yi Chen put away the sword manual and went back to the Green Willow House. Deep inside the main building of the Emerald Martial Palace, next to a crescent-shaped lake. The courtyard here was different from other places. It was tall, large, and magnificent. It was built with precious stones and covered a large area. Sister Ji, don't you want to come in and have a seat? Outside the courtyard, a male disciple with a noble aura asked Ji Xueyan to stay. Ji Xueyan shook her head and said, "No, Brother Shi, I'll go first." After saying that, she turned around and left. The male disciple, who was called Brother Shi, had a bad look on his face. He punched a huge hole in the thick wall of the courtyard without using any Jin Qi. "Brother Shi, I'm Kui Shiming." At this moment, footsteps came from behind. The male disciple with a noble aura turned around, frowned and said, "What are you doing here?" It was Kui Shiming, who was 17 or 18 years old, and was quite handsome. He was the one who had lost to Yi Chen before. He forced a smile. He was a bit scared of the man in front of him. This man was not an ordinary core disciple, he was one of the top 4 core disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace, the Stone Man Shapotian. He was as powerful as the extreme Palm Liu Wuxiang, and was only second to the young Master Emerald, who had already stepped into the clasping Yuan realm. "Brother Shi, are you interested in Ji Xueyan?" Kui Shiming smiled and asked. Shapotian's face darkened. "Don't get involved in things that you shouldn't get involved in. Otherwise, don't blame me for being cruel." Kui Shiming hurriedly said, "Brother Shi, you misunderstood me. Why would I get involved in your business? I wouldn't dare to do that." "Then what do you mean?" "Brother Shi, do you know about Yi Chen?" "I do. Isn't he the famous Sky Cloud Martial School disciple who has comprehended the half-step sword intent? What does he have to do with him?" Kui Shiming said in a low voice, "Brother Shi, you still don't know about it, do you? The one who was engaged to Ji Xueyan is Yi Chen. It's him." Shapotian indeed knew that Ji Xueyan was engaged to Yi Chen, but it was cancelled later. However, he didn't know who it was. Indeed, Yi Chen is the one who was engaged to Ji Xueyan. Back then, he was still a useless cultivator, and was not even noticed by Ji Xueyan. But now, That useless cultivator has become a genius who has comprehended the half-step sword intent. It's hard to say that Ji Shuyan won't be interested in him. Chapter 123. Hearing him, Shapotian recalled that 2 hours ago, Ji Shuyan's expression had obviously changed. She must have seen that disciple from the Sky Cloud Martial School named Yi Chen. Thinking about the fact that these two used to be engaged, Shapotian could not help but feel jealous and angry. The woman he loved would never be allowed to have any relationship with anyone else, even if that relationship was no longer there. He would still be very unhappy. This Yi Chen, he needed to teach him a lesson. Looking at Kui Shiming, Shapotian asked, "Do you have a grudge against Yi Chen?" Kui Shiming's face showed a ferocious expression. "This guy is evil and cunning. He defeated me and made me lose face in front of my junior sister Yi Xian." He had liked Yi Xian for a long time. Their relationship was quite good before, but ever since he had been beaten by Yi Chen, she would only greet him coldly whenever she saw him, which was a huge blow to his self-esteem. He wished he could go back in time and kill Yi Chen until there was nothing left of him. Shapotian sneered. Obviously, Yi Xian wasn't telling the truth, but he didn't want to expose him. "You can leave now," Shapotian said. Kui Shiming was confused. "Brother Shi, are we just going to let him go like this?" "Let him go. Dream on. Tomorrow, during the celebration banquet, the disciples of the major sects will compare notes with each other. At that time, I will challenge him and make him lose face in front of everyone. It would be best if I can make him lose his mind. In this way, I can justifiably cripple him." If it was possible, Shapotian wanted to kill Yi Chen right now. With his power, he could still do it. The so-called half-step sword intent was not even worth mentioning in front of absolute power. Kui Shiming was startled by Shapotian's tone. He thought about all the people who had gone against him in the past, who were either killed or crippled, unable to continue their cultivation for the rest of their lives. Kui Shiming could not help but feel happy. "Yi Chen, if you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being too famous and making me lose face in front of sister Yi Xian. Once you become a cripple, I will treat you well." After Kui Shiming left, Shapotian murmured to himself, "Junior sister Ji, I will let you know that a loser will always be a loser. Even if you have comprehended the half-step sword intent, you are still a loser in front of me." Humph. The night came and the stars shone brightly. Every big and small lake in the Emerald Martial Palace was reflecting a bright moon. Beside the bright moon were many lotus clouds, high up in the sky. In the middle of Green Willow House, Yi Chen turned on the crystal light in the room and was reading the sword scripture. The sword scripture was not a secret book. It talked about the ancient swordsman's understanding of sword principles. Some of the theories were very shallow, and some were very profound. Just a word or two was enough to make people ponder endlessly. Some didn't talk about sword arts, but about mentality. What mentality could make people enter the best state, and what mentality could make people have a chance to break through the shackles of sword arts? There were even some descriptions of sword will, but it was very mysterious. "Good book," Yi Chen couldn't help but praise. Although this sword scripture couldn't directly improve one's fighting ability and sword art, it could help a swordsman gain a lot of theoretical knowledge. Theoretical knowledge should never be underestimated. For a martial artist, he might be able to become a powerful warrior without any theoretical knowledge, but he would never be able to become a great master. A great master would need to have a huge knowledge base. Only in this way, he would be able to learn from hundreds of different schools of thought, and create his own path and theory. As he immersed himself in the contents of the sword scripture, Yi Chen gradually forgot about the time. Outside the yard, the moonlight was like water, and the stars were shining brightly. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew over from afar, stirring up a part of the lake. The head elder and the others, who were resting, were all confused. Just now, they had sensed that there was a sharp chi flashing past, but when they tried to sense it carefully, they couldn't find anything. It was like it was just an illusion. Xu Jing, who was meditating, opened her eyes. She subconsciously thought of Yi Chen, then closed her eyes and ignored him. There were only 13 pages in the sword scripture. Although Yi Chen had read it very carefully, he still finished it in less than half an hour. "Hey!" After waking up from his meditation, Yi Chen felt that his mind had become much clearer. Holding the hilt of the hidden cloud sword in his hand, Yi Chen could feel it even more clearly. He felt like something obscure was about to burst out from the bottom of his heart, which was extremely mysterious. It was the sword intent. After thinking for a while, Yi Chen found that his half-step sword intent had become even more solid. At his level, he had already reached a bottleneck, and breaking through it was not something that could be done in a day or two. He had to spend a long time to polish the sharpness of his sword intent. On the contrary, even if there was only a slight improvement, he would be able to clearly sense it. If it was the half-step sword intent before, then now it was a step further from the half-step sword intent. There was only a thin layer of thin gauze between the half-step sword intent and the real sword intent. As long as there was a slight breeze, the gauze would be lifted, and the essence of the sword intent would emerge in his heart. Letting out a long breath, Yi Chen murmured to himself, "I did not expect that a normal sword spell could be so useful. It saved me a lot of time to train, and with just a little bit of comprehension, I will be able to master the sword intent in no time. I really have to thank you for this. Yuan Xuemei." At this moment, if Yuan Xuemei knew that Yi Chen had gained a lot from the sword scripture, she would definitely be stunned. She had been studying this sword scripture for a long time, but she couldn't find anything special about it. At most, it had made her fighting style more practical. Standing up, Yi Chen opened the window and looked at the moonlight for a while. After a while, when he had calmed down, Yi Chen closed the window and started his daily Zhenqi training. Nothing happened that night. The next morning, the lake was shrouded in a thin layer of mist, which looked pure and holy. The quiet Emerald Martial Palace gradually became lively, filled with people's voices. Some of the leaders of the big forces who couldn't make it to the Sky Cloud Martial School yesterday had also arrived. The scene was 10 times more spectacular than the inner disciple ranking competition of the Sky Cloud Martial School. After all, young Master Emerald had stepped into the clasping Yuan realm, which was not something a small inner disciple ranking competition could compare with. If everything went well, in the next 10 years, young Master Emerald would definitely become the pillar of the Emerald Martial Palace, and his fame would definitely not be any less than the leaders of the top 5 martial institutions. During the celebration banquet, the most outstanding disciples from the top martial institutions will definitely compete with each other. At that time, we will be able to watch the top geniuses of the Windy Nation fight. Unfortunately, those top disciples won't come, otherwise it would be a grand occasion. It's already very good. People like North Snow Fast Blade Lynch and Stoneman Shapotian are basically as powerful as young Master North Snow and young Master Duanmu. Only young Master Emerald, who has stepped into the clasping Yuan realm, is more powerful than the others. That's right, it's really scary. In the Emerald Martial Palace, it's already quite good to have one genius at the child level. In addition to young Master Emerald, the Absolute Palm Liu Wuxiang and the Stoneman Shapotian are both at this level. Plus the traceless Snow Ji Shuiyan who has recently emerged, there are 3 of them in total. Yeah, the Emerald Martial Palace has never been short of top geniuses. Although Liu Wuxiang and Shapotian are listed in the second group of young generation in the Windy Nation, everyone knows that they are definitely the top of the second group. They are almost as powerful as young Master Duanmu and young Master North Snow. On the road between the lakes, some people who had just arrived were discussing with each other. Chapter 124. In the Green Willow House. After washing up, Yi Chen came to the main yard of the head elder's residence. In the yard, Luo Hanshan and Xu Jing were already waiting there. After a while, the head elder and the 4th elder walked out of the hall. The head elder glanced at the 3 of them and said, "Let's go." On the way, the head elder reminded Yi Chen, "Don't let your emotions get the better of you during the competition. Remember, you are representing the entire Sky Cloud Martial School, not just yourself." "I know." Yi Chen nodded. Luo Hanshan, who was standing beside him, grinned and said, "Unless someone is trying to hurt you, nothing too embarrassing will happen. Besides, Xu Jing and I will stand in front of you." The current Luo Hanshan was different from half a year ago. Back then, he had just regained his title as a genius, and couldn't wait to prove himself. Therefore, he agreed to fight against the Palm Master Liu Wuxiang without hesitation. But now, Luo Hanshan was friendly and calm, giving people a sense of confidence. Hanshan, I know that you have made great progress in the past half a year, but don't underestimate Liu Wuxiang and Shapotian, they are not simple people. The fourth elder interrupted. Luo Hanshan responded, Don't worry, fourth elder, I know what I'm doing. There was a large river between the main buildings of the Emerald Martial Palace and the outside world. Over the river, there were 3 magnificent stone bridges, each of which was 33 zhong long and 15 zhong wide, which could allow 10 horses to cross side by side without feeling crowded at all. At the moment, people were moving on the stone bridges, heading towards the main buildings. After crossing the bridge, an outer elder of the Emerald Martial Palace walked up to them. My friends, the celebration will be held in the Baohua Square, please follow me. The head elder nodded and followed behind the elder. After a while, the Baohua Square appeared in front of them. The square, which was hundreds of zhong wide, was entirely white with a hint of cyan, shining with a faint light, as if it was made from a giant piece of jade. It looked magnificent and noble. Seats had already been arranged on the square, and a third of the people had already taken their seats, while the rest of the people kept coming. This way, please. The outer elder of the Emerald Martial Palace led them to the second seat on the right-hand side of the main seat. The first seat was for the Rudra Martial School, and opposite to them were the North Snow Martial Academy and the Purple Sun Martial School. Judging from this, the Sky Cloud Martial School was ranked last among the top 5 martial institutions. The Great Elder didn't think much of it. He nodded and sat down. The fourth elder, Yi Chen, and the others took their seats. Turning his head, Yi Chen saw Yuan Shuamei, who was smiling at him with a bright and beautiful smile. Looking at the other side, Ouyang Ming, who was tall and sturdy, first looked at Luo Hanshan with a scornful smile, then looked at Yi Chen with an even more scornful look. Second brother, was that young master Hanshan, Luo Hanshan, really that powerful? The ugly teenager sitting next to Ouyang Ming asked. Ouyang Ming responded plainly, Why are you bringing up the past? How could he be as powerful as a young master now? Young master Hanshan has already become a joke. I think, the Windy Nation should re-rank the top 4 young masters. Get rid of young master Emerald, who is not at the same level as us, and kick out young master Hanshan, then there will still be 2 places left for the top 4 young masters. Eldest brother and second brother should be able to make it on the list. I have already thought of the names. Eldest brother will be called young master Ben Lei, and second brother, you will be called young master Godly Legs. The ugly teenager was very talkative, and said flatteringly. Ouyang Ming paused for a second. Young master Godly Legs was not a bad name. Suddenly, his face turned serious, he pretended to be angry and said, Don't talk nonsense, I don't deserve to be called a young master. The ugly teenager noticed Ouyang Ming's expression. He knew that Ouyang Ming wasn't angry at all, so he immediately added fuel to the fire. I am telling the truth, second brother, it's just that you became famous a little bit later. If you beat young master Hanshan today, you will definitely become one of the top 4 young masters. Young master Hanshan, I will beat him, I hope he can make me serious. Ouyang Ming squinted his eyes. On the other side, Yi Chen sneered in his mind. With his powerful soul power, he had heard their conversation clearly. This Ouyang Ming and the ugly teenager were indeed arrogant. Not to mention young master Hanshan, even the North Snow Fast Blade Lynch from the North Snow Martial Academy was not that easy to deal with. When the red sun rose from the east, almost all the seats on the square were occupied, only the people from the Emerald Martial Palace, who were the hosts, had not arrived yet. After a while, the door of the palace on top of the Baohua Square suddenly opened, and a group of people walked out. The man in the lead was about 40 years old. He was handsome, with a long beard on his chin. He didn't look aggressive at all, instead, he looked more gentle and elegant, like a middle-aged scholar who had read a lot of books. He gave people a perfect first impression. Leader Zhuang, how have you been? Leader Zhuang, congratulations. Down below, all the leaders of the big parties stood up and cupped their fists. The middle-aged man had a big smile on his face. He waved his hand and signaled everyone to sit down. He had an indescribable aura around him, Who else could it be other than the leader of the Emerald Martial Palace, Zhuang Qingxian? Yi Chen slightly frowned. He didn't know why, but when he saw the middle-aged man, the image of Yu Buchuan from the wuxia novels flashed across his mind. On both sides of Zhuang Qingxian were 8 inner elders. Each of them had a powerful and immeasurable aura, almost as powerful as the head elder, and the 2 in the front were even more powerful than the head elder. Behind them were the 3 core disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace, Liu Wuxiang with a cold face, Shi Potian with a noble temperament, and Ji Xueyan with a beautiful face. The last one was a male disciple with extremely white skin, who was even more handsome than a girl, and who had a pair of green eyes that flashed with an evil light. As the people from the Emerald Martial Palace sat down, Zhuang Qingxian said with a loud voice, "Today is my son Zhuang Fei's birthday celebration. Thank you all for coming all the way to the Emerald Martial Palace, it is my honor." "Leader Zhuang, what are you talking about? You have already given us face by inviting us here." "That's right. The Emerald Martial Palace is the #1 martial institution in the Windy Nation. How could we not come? The celebration is about to start. Why hasn't your son shown up yet?" Zhuang Qingxian smiled. He was very satisfied with the atmosphere. After today, the Emerald Martial Palace's dominant position would be even more unshakable, and they would completely dominate the other 4 martial institutions. "Everyone, please wait for a moment, my son will be here soon." As soon as Zhuang Qingxian's voice faded, a young man walked out of the palace. As if he was affected by an invisible force field, everyone's eyes were focused on him. The young man was about 18 or 19 years old. He had a jade-like face, and a pair of eyes that looked like stars in the sky, shining brightly. He was tall and straight, wearing a green robe, which made him look noble and noble. Every step he took seemed to contain an inexhaustible magical power, which made everyone's heartbeat quicken. Seeing Luo Hanshan, Lin Qi's eyes burst out with an amazing fighting intent, but he soon calmed down. In Ouyang Ming's eyes, besides the fighting intent, there was more jealousy and ambition, which made him clench his fists tightly. As for Luo Hanshan, he seemed to be very calm. No one knew what he was thinking, only Yi Chen could clearly sense that he was slightly sighing. The young man's identity was obvious. He was indeed the most powerful young martial artist of the Windy Nation, the Emerald Young Master, Zhuang Fei. Chapter 125. Young Master Emerald. He is only at the early clasping Yuan realm, but he is giving people the pressure of a mid-clasping Yuan realm martial artist. His potential is limitless. A leader of a powerful party gasped. "Leader Wang, you haven't heard of him, right?" When young Master Emerald stepped into the clasping Yuan realm, he was ambushed by a mid-level ghost guard under the ghost artist's command, but was killed by him with a single palm attack. Mid-level ghost guard. Back then, the ghost artist was one of the 108 ghost warriors of the 9 ghost cult. His ghost guards were invincible, and all of them were elites among elites. To become a mid-level ghost guard, one had to be at least at the peak of early clasping Yuan realm. The higher one's cultivation level was, the harder it was to kill someone with a higher cultivation. When a martial artist was at the mortal realm, it was not difficult to kill someone with a higher cultivation, and when a martial artist reached the condensing reality realm, it was not difficult to kill someone with a higher cultivation. However, once a martial artist reached the clasping Yuan realm, killing someone with a higher cultivation would be quite difficult. Not to mention that those who could become mid-level ghost guards were all elites, and they could also kill people with a higher cultivation. Hearing this, the crowd looked at young Master Emerald in a different light. Most of them were at the mid-clasping Yuan realm, and only a few of them had reached the late-clasping Yuan realm. In other words, most of them did not have the confidence to fight against young Master Emerald. Young Master Emerald glanced at the crowd, and his eyes stopped on Luo Hanshan for a second, then he said, "Thank you all for coming to the celebration banquet. Zhuang Fei is deeply honored. In order to show the sincerity of the Emerald Martial Palace, there will be many wonderful performances today. I believe it will make you all happy." After saying some more appropriate words, young Master Emerald stepped back and gave the right to speak to the leader of the Emerald Martial Palace, Zhuang Qingxian. Zhuang Qingxian walked to the front and said with a loud voice, "Without further ado, let the celebration banquet begin." Immediately, The sound of musical instruments came from all around, including drums, flutes, and zithers, which made the atmosphere on the stage even more relaxed. Soon, beautiful maids brought breakfast and tea to the crowd. After the tea, the performance officially began. The first performance was called Candle Blowing. A short middle-aged man who was at the early condensing reality realm walked on the stage. He placed 13 candles on the ground in an S shape, then stepped back for 10 steps and slowly circulated his chi. It was the first time for the crowd to see this kind of performance, so they all showed some interest. Who? The stocky middle-aged man spat out a mouthful of white gas. The white gas was like a dart, and it easily extinguished the first candle. Then, it bent to the side and extinguished the second candle, the third candle. When the 13th candle was extinguished, thunderous applause rang out. Good, wonderful. It is quite rare for an early condensing reality realm warrior to be able to do this. Normally, the breath that came out of one's mouth would travel in a straight line, and would never bend. Although clasping Yuan realm warriors could do that, which clasping Yuan realm warrior would want to show his face and perform on the stage? Plus, a performance was a performance after all, and it would be meaningless if a powerful warrior went on the stage. Yi Chen applauded softly. It was indeed marvelous. The other party should have cultivated a cultivation art that allowed him to maintain his aura. After a long period of training, it would not be difficult for him to achieve this. The following performances became more and more exciting, and many people were attracted by them. There were also some people who chatted while watching the performances. If they were thirsty, there were all kinds of fruits on the table beside them. If they had any requests, they could ask the beautiful maidservant beside them. Before they knew it, it was already noon. The lunch was quite sumptuous. There were food that could fly in the sky, swim in the water, run in the mountains. As long as they could be found in the market, they could be found here, and even if they couldn't be found in the market, they could be found here. The wine was the Blue Sea 3 flavors, which cost 3,000 silvers per bottle, the top-grade wine of the Windy Nation. Taking a sip of the wine, Luo Hansan said, "After lunch, the real business is about to start. Don't be careless." The head elder only said 4 words. The 3 of them nodded. Xu Jing suddenly said to Yi Chen, "Shapotian and that Emerald Martial Palace disciple have been staring at you, be careful." Yi Chen said, "I know." He had been wondering why Shapotian would look so fierce from time to time. Although he had hidden it very well, it still couldn't escape from Yi Chen's senses. The other person should be the number 1 inner disciple of the Emerald Martial Palace, and he was probably here to deal with Yi Chen. On the side, the 4th elder hadn't said anything, but he was actually more anxious than anyone else. Luo Hanshan used to be one of the 4 young masters, but it was still unknown whether he was as powerful as a child now. He probably wouldn't be able to fight against the second-ranked disciples of the other martial institutions. He wasn't sure how powerful Xu Jing was among the core disciples, but he only knew that the North Snow Fast Blade Lynch and the Stoneman Shapotian were almost as powerful as a child. Fortunately, the Sky Cloud Martial School still had Yi Chen. Although he was still not powerful enough, as long as he didn't lose too badly, with his half-step sword intent, he would be able to save a lot of face. Thinking of this, the 4th elder glanced at Yi Chen expectantly. A fiery sun was shining in the sky, sprinkling down thousands of golden beams of light. In the Baohua Square, everyone's faces were filled with expectation, waiting for the next performance. Zhuang Qingxian cleared his throat and said with a smile, "I think you all know what's going to happen next. Yes, it's going to be a competition between the disciples of the top martial institutions and other powerful forces. You can't kill your opponent. If anyone dares to violate this rule, I, Zhuang Qingxian, will have to teach you a lesson on behalf of your martial institutions. Also, the competition has to be consensual. If your opponent doesn't want to fight, you can't force him. Of course, I personally hope that everyone can participate. Leader Zhuang, we've been waiting for this moment, let's start. Leader Zhuang, time waits for no man, let's have a good show as soon as possible." Seeing some people showing an impatient look, Zhuang Qingxian smiled and said, "All right. The competition has officially started. Who wants to be the first one on the stage?" The ugly teenager from the Purple Sun Martial House stood up, walked to the stage and made a fist and palm salute. I am Zhongqing, a core disciple of the Purple Sun Martial House. I want to challenge the core disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial House, Xu Jing. Xu Jing, do you dare to fight with me? The ugly teenager Zhongqing had a cousin named Zhao Guo. During a mission, he had a conflict with Xu Jing and was severely injured by her. This made the other disciples of the Purple Sun Martial House angry. After all, they rarely suffered losses, and Zhao Guo was one of the top 10 inner disciples. They could not accept that. After that, as long as there was a chance, the powerful disciples of the Purple Sun Martial House would try to find trouble with Xu Jing. However, they did not expect her to be so powerful. None of the inner disciples were her opponents, and those who tried to find trouble with her were all severely injured and humiliated. Now that there was a chance, Zhongqing wanted to teach Xu Jing a lesson on behalf of the Purple Sun Martial House and his cousin. Why not? Xu Jing, who was dressed in white, stood up and walked up slowly. Zhuang Qingxian said, "All right, the two of you should try your best to control yourselves. You don't have to win or lose." Then, he took a step back and sat on the wide chair behind him. Chapter 126. In the middle of the Baohua Plaza, Xu Jing and Zhongqing stood 30 steps away from each other. Although it is just a competition, I will not hold back. I hope you can last a little longer. A dim light flashed on the surface of the storage ring, and a huge purple sword appeared in Zhongqing's hand. This sword was half the length of a human, and its body was wide and thick. It looked quite heavy. Xu Jing was barehanded. She did not have any weapons, she said coldly. 10 attacks is more than enough to take care of you. Zhongqing's expression froze. He laughed with a deep voice. All right, then I would like to see how you are going to beat me within 10 attacks. Don't cut your own tongue. Cut. Just as he finished talking, Zhongqing held the sword with both of his hands and raised it high. Beams of purple and red light gathered on the tip of the sword, and he instantly threw it towards Xu Jing. Shoo, shoo, shoo. 3 burning sword lights shot out, and even the air was melted. Xu Jing was expressionless, but a huge fire halo appeared behind her head, shining brightly. With the help of the halo, Xu Jing's aura suddenly increased, and she threw out 3 punches in a row towards the incoming sword light. Crack, crackle. Like a popping sound, the sword light was shattered into pieces by Zhongqing's fist power before it could even get close to Xu Jing's body. Go down. Zhongqing obviously did not expect 3 sword lights to be able to beat Xu Jing. If he really could, then it would be too boring. As soon as Xu Jing shattered the sword light, Zhongqing took a step forward, turned into a shadow, and attacked towards Xu Jing in an awkward way. The heavy sword body tore through the air, making a shrill sound. It was not hard to imagine that even with the Zhenqi layer, it would not be able to block out this sword attack. Chin. Under everyone's shocked gaze, Xu Jing adjusted her posture and threw out a punch that was covered in a golden light. The huge sword in Zhongqing's hand was almost blown away. He was shocked. Although the sword in his hand was not a low-rank greatsword, it was still one of the top of the normal greatswords. Combined with his powerful Zhenqi, it still could not compete with his opponent's fist. What a joke. Piss off. After blowing away the huge sword with one punch, a solid golden light burst out from Xu Jing's body. Puff puff puff. At the critical moment, Zhongqing condensed 6 purplish-red Zhenqi shields in front of him. There was 1 in the middle, and 5 around him, protecting him tightly. However, he had underestimated the impact of the golden light and was forced to retreat. Yi Chen smiled faintly. To be honest, he wasn't worried about Xu Jing at all. At this moment, she probably hadn't even used 60% of her strength, and the most terrifying thing about her was that she could use 60% of her strength to 80%, or even 90%. Of course, Zhongqing did not use his full strength. It was just that it would be very difficult for him to defeat Xu Jing. What the hell is Zhongqing doing? Why isn't he using his full strength? On the Ziyang Martial School's side, Ouyang Ming, who was sitting on a chair, frowned. A few cracks appeared on the hard ground of the Baohua Square. Zhongqing stopped and said in a low voice, "You are qualified enough for me to use my full power." After Zhongqing finished speaking, a purplish-red light rose from his body. The light was like an inextinguishable flame, burning brighter and brighter. Finally, it flowed along Zhongqing's hands and merged into the big sword, causing the whole big sword to be covered in flames. It was as dazzling as the sun in the sky. Purple sun sword aura. As Zhongqing swung his sword down, the purplish-red light transformed into a gigantic, illusory sword, which was tens of meters long, and swung towards Xu Jing. The gigantic illusory sword was way too powerful, it even sucked up all the air in front of it. A loud sonic boom shook the air on the square like water ripples. This sword attack is quite powerful, I think she is going to lose. On the Emerald Martial School's side, Shapotian was sitting there calmly, with a faint smile on his face. Luo Hanshan looked a bit worried. Zhongqing's power was more or less out of his expectation, and this martial skill was not simple either. It was especially used to deal with warriors who liked to fight head-on. Unfortunately, Sister Xu Jing was exactly this kind of warrior. Brother Luo, don't worry, Sister Xu will win. For her, this is just an appetizer. Yi Chen said. Oh, I hope so. Luo Hanshan didn't know why Yi Chen was so confident in Sister Xu Jing, but he knew that it would be great if Sister Xu Jing could win. Lose. Zhongqing gathered all of his Jin Qi into this sword attack, his face slightly blushed. Right at the moment when the sword attack was launched, Xu Jing's eyes suddenly turned sharp. A burst of golden light burst forth, and another ring of flames condensed behind her head, trapping the first ring of flames within it. It was a ring within a ring. Luo Hanshan shouted in a low voice, the 8th level of the Golden Three Realm Art. With the help of the 2 fiery halos, Xu Jing's power increased by 30%, and the bright golden light had completely solidified, shooting straight up into the sky. Crack! She put her hands together, and the gigantic illusory sword was blocked by Xu Jing, without moving even a little bit. As she suddenly shook it, the gigantic sword exploded, and Zhongqing was sent flying backwards while vomiting blood. 3 moves, you're only at this level. Xu Jing's face didn't even blush, and she didn't even gasp for breath. You. Zhongqing crawled back up from the ground, and vomited another mouthful of blood. Zhuang Qingxian glanced at Xu Jing in surprise, then raised his voice and said, all right, the first round is over, who else wants to go? Shapotian stared at Yi Chen, and sent a message to the handsome teenager standing next to him. Cheng Jun, you go and try that Yi Chen. If he can't beat him, I'll have to do it myself. Originally, he wanted to do it himself, but after careful consideration, he felt that it was a bit inappropriate. Yi Chen had just become famous not long ago, and he wasn't even a true core disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School yet, while Shapotian was already one of the top 4 core disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace. Even if he beat Yi Chen, people would still gossip about him, which was not a good idea. Therefore, it would be better to let Cheng Jun, who was also the number 1 inner disciple of the Emerald Martial Palace, go first. Although Cheng Jun wasn't a core disciple yet, his fighting power could be ranked in the top 15 among the core disciples. If everything went well, it wouldn't be too hard for him to beat Yi Chen. Cheng Jun, who was even more handsome than a girl, responded, Brother Shi, he has only mastered the half-step sword intent, his power is very weak. There is no need for you to do it, I can beat him easily. Shapotian nodded and said, remember, don't let him have an easy time. Don't worry, I have been cultivating the great natural splitting force. Once I do, I will make him lie on the bed for at least 10 days or half a month. As for stopping when the time is right, that's just for show. Do you really want to have a friendly competition? That would be too boring. Shapotian slightly nodded, then looked at Yi Chen with a hideous smile on his face, and thought, it seems that I don't have to do it anymore. Cheng Jun alone is enough to disappoint you. Leader, I want to challenge Yi Chen of the Sky Cloud Martial School. Cheng Jun stood up and walked up. Zhuang Qingxian laughed out loud and said, good, you are the number 1 inner disciple of the Emerald Martial Palace, and Yi Chen is the number 1 inner disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School. Yi Chen, do you dare to fight me? Cheng Jun looked at Yi Chen. Chapter 127. All of a sudden, everyone turned to look at Yi Chen. Those leaders who had been to the Sky Cloud Martial School to watch the inner disciple ranking competition all knew him, while those who had never been there were all talking about him. He is that Yi Chen, he is so young. At such a young age, he has already mastered the half-step sword intent, how incredible. Once he masters the real sword intent, his potential will be as great as that of the Emerald Child. Unfortunately, he is still not there yet. Yeah, that Cheng Jun, the number one inner disciple of the Emerald Martial Palace, has such a strong Zhen Qi vibration, he has obviously reached the peak of the late condensing reality realm. Since Zhuang Qingxian let him fight, he must be very powerful, maybe he is already at the top of the core disciples. Top of the core disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace, this is very valuable, Yi Chen should be able to win. Most of the people did not think highly of Yi Chen, but they were very optimistic about his future. After all, he was the first one among the young generation who had mastered the half-step sword intent. It was very likely that he would be able to master the real sword intent in the future. Slowly standing up, Yi Chen did not say anything and walked straight onto the stage. You have mastered the half-step sword intent, not bad, but you have to remember, in this world, power is everything, no one cares about what you have actually mastered. Seeing Yi Chen walk onto the stage without hesitation, Cheng Jun sneered, slightly raised his chin and looked down at Yi Chen. Yi Chen said calmly, "You are right. Power is everything. You are barely enough to make me fight with all of my power. Don't be so arrogant, don't think that just because you are the number one inner disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School, you are just an ordinary inner disciple in the Emerald Martial Palace." Cheng Jun did not give any face to the head elder of the Sky Cloud Martial School, he tried his best to belittle the average level of the disciples of the Sky Cloud Martial School. The head elder's face was filled with anger. The Emerald Martial Palace was getting more and more arrogant. Even a small inner disciple did not put the Sky Cloud Martial School in his eyes. In the past, they only talked behind their backs, but now, they said it right in front of him. Huh. The head elder snorted coldly. His voice contained a clasping Yuan realm Zhen Qi. Everyone could sense the head elder's anger. Zhuang Qingxian glanced at the head elder of the Sky Cloud Martial School and scolded Cheng Jun, "Everything will be judged by the public, how dare you judge it yourself?" Although Cheng Jun didn't sense Zhuang Qingxian's anger, he knew that he couldn't go overboard. He immediately cupped his fists towards the crowd and said, "Cheng Jun is a straightforward person. I've made a fool of myself." After that, his eyes turned sharp and he said to Yi Chen, "Whether what I said is true or not, let the results prove it." Buzz. The storage ring flickered with a dim light, and the hidden cloud sword appeared in Yi Chen's hand. He slowly unsheathed the sword and pointed it at Cheng Jun. Yi Chen said coldly, "If I can't defeat you within 5 movements, I lose." Everyone was shocked by his words. The head elder's face darkened. Before he came here, he had told Yi Chen not to act impulsively. In here, he was not only representing himself, but the entire Sky Cloud Martial School, and he had to think about the Sky Cloud Martial School first. How could he have completely forgotten about that? Defeating Cheng Jun within 5 movements was not an easy task, and if he failed to do so, everyone would undoubtedly look down on him and think that he was a braggart. Luo Hansan couldn't help but say, "Brother Yi, you are too impulsive." Not necessarily. Xu Jing was a man of few words. The fourth elder gave a bitter smile and said, "Do you really think that Yi Chen can defeat Cheng Jun within 5 movements? If I'm not wrong, this Cheng Jun is at least one of the top core disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace. Although I hate to admit it, judging only from the sense of power released from his body, he can be ranked in the top 7 or even the top 6 among all the core disciples of the Sky Cloud Martial School." Besides some of the leaders, the young generation all shook their heads as well. They all thought that Yi Chen was too arrogant, especially Shapotian. He sneered in his mind, it would have been better if Yi Chen hadn't said those words, but if he failed to do so, then he would have lost a lot of face. "I can't believe that this Yi Chen is even more stupid and arrogant than I thought." Ouyang Ming sneered, reckless. On the Rudra Martial School's side, Yuan Shuemei had long hated Cheng Jun. She actually hoped that Yi Chen could defeat Cheng Jun within 5 movements, although it was almost impossible. "You are looking for death." Cheng Jun's clothes started to flutter even though there was no wind. Beams of cyan and purple light burst out from his body. He moved his feet slightly, leaving cracks on the ground. His whole body shot out like a blade, His palm was as straight as a blade, and he threw out a palm attack. Swoosh! The air was sliced open, and a cyan and purple light blade shot out from his palm, attacking towards Yi Chen. Yi Chen did not step back. Instead, his calm temperament suddenly turned sharp. Wave after wave of sword power burst out from his body. His whole body seemed to have turned into a cloud, a sword that was accumulating power, and was about to explode with an amazing destructive power. First movement. As he stabbed out with his sword, Yi Chen's whole body turned illusory. His sword power was not stable, and his figure was not stable either. He was like a floating cloud in the sky, and was not bound by his normal state. Crack! The cyan and purple light blade went through Yi Chen's illusory figure, leaving a deep crack on the ground. At the same time, Yi Chen's sword had already pierced towards Cheng Jun's chest. What kind of sword art is this? Cheng Jun was shocked. He didn't expect that Yi Chen's sword art and body movement would be so weird. He was about to hit his opponent, but he missed it by a hair's breadth. A trace of anger flashed past Cheng Jun's face. He crazily activated his Jun Qi. Natural purple crystal Qi. The cyan and purple light gathered together and condensed into a purple crystal-like shield in front of Cheng Jun's chest. The shield was crystal clear, and had 8 flat surfaces. The edges of the shield were emitting a faint halo, firmly protecting Cheng Jun's body. As for the other parts of his body, they were also covered by a layer of purple crystal Qi. Yi Chen didn't make any changes. He still stabbed out with his hidden cloud sword. The sword power contained a horrifying half-step sword intent, which made it even more condensed. Puff! The purple crystal shield was broken. It couldn't even block a little bit of Yi Chen's attack. What? The natural purple crystal Qi was broken. Shapotian clenched his fist so hard that the teacup he had just picked up was smashed into pieces. The tea splashed everywhere. No wonder he was so shocked. The natural purple crystal Qi was one of the natural great splitting force, which was a low-rank Earth realm martial art from the Emerald Martial Palace. It was not weaker than Liu Wuxiang's blue murderous Qi. In terms of destructive power, it was even more powerful. An ordinary late condensing reality realm martial artist might not be able to break the natural purple crystal Qi even if he used all of his power. But now, it couldn't even block a single sword attack from Yi Chen. Young Master Emerald's expression slightly changed. The power of the half-step sword intent had really surprised him. Piss off! Cheng Jun yelled out. The natural purple crystal Qi around his body grew thicker and thicker once again. It slowed down the sword tip. After that, he raised his right hand and slapped towards Yi Chen's head. The strong wind blew Yi Chen's hair into the air. He also yelled out, "Dominate the world!" Boom! All of the surrounding Yuan Qi was sucked out and injected into Yi Chen's left fist. Yi Chen then threw out his fist with an unstoppable power, clashing against Cheng Jun's palm attack. There was no expected loud bang, neither were there any broken bricks or people flying away. The black light and the cyan-purple light were devouring each other, trying their best to fight against each other. Some of the weaker young warriors felt a bit uncomfortable. It was as if they knew that thunder was coming, but they could only see lightning bolts flashing across the sky, without any sound of thunder. It was both weird and depressing. Right at this moment, a thunderous boom finally broke out. The black light and cyan-purple light scattered on the stage, shooting out in all directions. Such a strong Qi power. The leaders of the powerful parties all made their moves. They created a thick layer of Qi wall in front of their own area, blocking the Qi power from spreading and destroying the surrounding area. All of a sudden, the transparent Qi wall started to ripple. The two of them separated right after they touched each other. Yi Chen was still in the air. He waved out a sword attack. Limitless cloud. The thick sword Qi was extremely powerful. Wherever it went, the air seemed to have been swept away. It then hacked towards Cheng Jun along with a destructive power. Damn it! Cheng Jun was extremely angry. He gathered all of his Jun Qi into his right palm and threw it towards the sword Qi. Crackle! The Jun Qi on the edge of his palm was completely broken. Cheng Jun spat out a mouthful of blood. His meridians had been injured by the remaining sword Qi. Unbelievable! The two had only exchanged 3 attacks, and Cheng Jun had already been injured. Was he really defeated in 5 attacks? Half-step sword intent is even more powerful than I had imagined. Luckily, it is not the real sword intent yet. Otherwise, Cheng Jun would not have been able to handle the first attack. But there are still 2 more attacks left. Cheng Jun should be able to handle it. If he couldn't handle it, then he would lose face. Before, he had been trying to belittle the average level of the Sky Cloud Martial School's disciples. But now, he has been defeated in 5 attacks. It is like being slapped in the face. Seeing Cheng Jun being injured, everyone was shocked. Yi Chen, you want to defeat me in 5 attacks? In your dreams. I will make you regret it. Cheng Jun's eyes were completely red. He forcibly activated his Jin Qi and crushed the sword Qi that had invaded his body. Then, he walked towards Yi Chen step by step. With every step he took, the ground would crack, and the natural amethyst Qi around his body would increase by a bit. By the 7th step, the natural amethyst Qi had condensed into the shape of a sharp blade. At this moment, Cheng Jun had already surpassed his own limit. He had forcibly pushed his natural splitting force to the peak of the 8th level, and his Jin Qi had condensed into the shape of a blade. Break. Facing Yi Chen, Cheng Jun raised his right hand high and swung it forward. Swoosh. The side blade phantom followed Cheng Jun's hand gesture and flew out, the aftershock cutting terrifying cracks on the surface of the square. The surrounding air was like water, with many wrinkles appearing, cut by the side blade phantom one by one, and then exploded into pieces, exploding into turbulence. The peak of the 8th level of the natural splitting force, I can definitely defeat him. Shaposhan's eyes were fixed on the square. He couldn't wait to see Yi Chen's body being smashed into pieces. Ouyang Ming sneered. Yi Chen, who had mastered the half-step sword intent, would be a threat sooner or later. It was a good thing that he had been defeated now. Xu Jing and Luo Hanshan both frowned slightly. By now, she was no longer sure that Yi Chen would be able to defeat Cheng Jun. After all, Cheng Jun's breakthrough was way too sudden. No one had expected that the pressure and humiliation would actually help him break through. Compared to Yi Chen's luck was way too bad. Facing this horrifying attack, the Jin Qi inside Yi Chen's body exploded on its own. Vaguely, there seemed to be an invisible barrier in the deepest part of his dantian being broken. The circulation speed of his Jin Qi increased drastically, and the natural Yuan Qi poured into his body like a funnel. Right then, Yi Chen had also made a breakthrough just like Cheng Jun. But the difference was that his cultivation had reached the late condensing reality realm. Feeling the powerful Jin Qi circulating inside his body, Yi Chen raised his eyes. His sharp gaze was almost tangible, and it turned into an illusory sword Qi that shot out, piercing everyone's eyes. Chapter 128. Lu Hanshan was shocked. Brother Yi has reached the late condensing reality realm? Lu Hanshan was already shocked when he heard that Cheng Jun had already reached the peak of the 8th stage of the Great Natural Splitting Force. He felt that this kind of thing was very rare. Not every pressure could help a person make progress, otherwise, the whole true spirit realm would be in chaos, with people fighting each other to death every day. It could only be said that pressure could help a person make a breakthrough. However, he didn't expect that Yi Chen had also made a breakthrough, and it was a breakthrough in his cultivation, directly reaching the late condensing reality realm from the peak of the mid-condensing reality realm. Judging from the great Yuan Qi vibration, his late condensing reality realm cultivation seemed to be much more solid than ordinary people, and his Jin Qi didn't seem to be unstable at all. Yi Chen took a step forward, along with which, sharp airflows spread out in all directions. It was as if Yi Chen's entire body had been merged with the eye of a storm, and a shocking sword aura rose into the sky. He held the sword with one hand and simply swung it down. My sword. What's going on? Why did my sword come out of the sheath by itself? There were many inner disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace on the scene, and many of them had swords with them. However, at this moment, their swords flew out of their sheaths uncontrollably, attacking towards Cheng Jun along with Yi Chen's sword aura. A few of them were relatively powerful, and managed to grab onto their swords in time. However, No matter how hard they tried to activate their Jin Qi, their swords still couldn't stop shaking. Huh. One of the inner elders of the Emerald Martial Palace snorted and waved his hand, cutting off the connection between the sword intent and those swords. Without the support of those swords, although the thick sword qi released by Yi Chen wasn't as powerful as before, it was still extremely sharp. Waves of white qi were formed behind the sword qi, which looked like rapidly changing clouds, pushing the sword qi forward. Crack! The sword qi clashed with the blade silhouette, and in the next moment, the blade silhouette was cut into two. The sword qi, which had shrunk to 1/3 of its original size, didn't lose any of its power, and fiercely struck on Cheng Jun's protective purple crystal qi. A shocking amount of blood splattered out, and a sword wound appeared on Cheng Jun's chest. It was so deep that it could reach his bones, and this was because the sword qi had changed direction midway and flew into the sky. Cheng Jun's chest wound was only cut by the aftershock of the sword qi. Otherwise, he would not be alive. Puff! Cheng Jun spat out a mouthful of blood. This mouthful of blood actually contained traces of sword qi, and it pierced through the ground. His face instantly turned pale and bloodless, and he was about to kneel on the ground. Suddenly, a figure landed beside Cheng Jun and supported him. He was an inner elder of the Emerald Martial Palace. 4 moves, he defeated Cheng Jun with 4 moves. That sword move just now has touched the edge of sword intent, right? Yes, I also felt a sharp intent sweep through my heart. I thought it was just an illusion. I heard that once the sword intent is unleashed, it can sever the will of the void, making it impervious to all evils. What ability does this kid possess to actually touch sword insight first? Alas! Of course, most of them were jealous. At their age, it would be very difficult for them to improve their cultivation. They could only improve their combat strength in other aspects. Without a doubt, sword intent and saber intent were the dream of all of them. If these 2 things could be bought, they would buy them even if they had to spend all their wealth. They would do so at all costs. On the Sky Cloud Martial School's side, the head elder and the 4th elder let out a relieved smile. Yi Chen's outstanding performance was already a well-known fact, and they would definitely report it to their leader when they got back. Lu Hanshan shook his head, looked at Xu Jing and said, "Amazing, now I finally understand what you mean. Perhaps, he can lead us out of the Windy Nation and compete with those young geniuses from the South Shui region." Xu Jing didn't answer, but instead, she asked, "You are also at the child level now, right?" Lu Hanshan didn't respond, but his eyes were shining brightly. The Emerald Martial Palace's inner elder, who was holding Cheng Jun's arm, helped him to expel the sword qi from his body. Seeing that Cheng Jun was severely wounded, he abruptly turned around, looked at Yi Chen and yelled harshly, "It's just a competition, but you attacked so cruelly. Let me teach you a lesson." After saying that, he threw a slap towards Yi Chen. Bang! The air vibrated intensely, and Yi Chen was forced to step back. In front of him, the Sky Cloud Martial School's head elder appeared out of nowhere, smashed his opponent's palm attack with a single slap, and yelled, "Chengyu, don't go too far. Yi Chen has already shown you mercy. Do you really think that you can bully our Sky Cloud Martial School's disciples? You." That Emerald Martial Palace's inner elder had a fierce look in his eyes. Cheng Jun was his grandson, and he had always had high hopes for him. But today, not only was he defeated within 4 moves, he had also suffered a serious internal injury. He felt that his blood was rushing to his head, and he was about to lose his mind. Zhuang Qingxian threw a complicated glance at Yi Chen, then yelled at the Emerald Martial Palace's inner elder, "Haven't you lost enough face? Take Cheng Jun to get his wounds treated." After the inner elder took Cheng Jun away, Zhuang Qingxian took a deep breath and said, "This is just a competition. I hope you guys can control yourselves, don't force yourselves to fight." Just now, Yi Chen had indeed shown mercy to Cheng Jun. Therefore, Zhuang Qingxian didn't dare to say anything, otherwise, he would leave an unfair impression on the crowd, which would damage his reputation. After that, the competition continued. However, all of the battles were between the young warriors from the other big powers. None of the truly powerful young warriors felt that it was not the right time yet. At this moment, Shapotian was very unhappy. Just now, he had taken a glance at Ji Shuian, and found that she had been staring at Yi Chen without even noticing him. This made him feel that he had been completely ignored. Although she had never been very interested in him before, at least she had maintained a certain amount of respect for him. In his eyes, their relationship was already quite good, and there was still some hope. However, right now, that little hope had been completely destroyed. Yi Chen, don't think too highly of yourself just because you've won against Cheng Jun. The real child-level power is not something you can imagine. After a few more battles, I will let you know what the gap between us is, and what despair is. I will destroy your half-step sword intent, and make you wish you were dead. Shaposhan's expression was still the same, but his mind was in turmoil. He had already come up with a plan, which was to completely shatter Yi Chen's confidence. A sword artist who had lost his confidence would probably lose his sword intent, not to mention that Yi Chen hadn't even comprehended the real sword intent yet. Shapotian glanced at Yi Chen with an evil look in his eyes. Among the inner disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace, Yi Xian stared at Yi Chen, who was sitting on the chair. Just now, if it weren't for the inner elders, her sword would have been unsheathed by itself and merged with Yi Chen's sword aura. She couldn't understand how a man who used to be so useless could suddenly shine so brightly, and it was getting brighter and brighter, almost reaching the peak of the young generation in the Windy Nation. Sister Yi, he can only be arrogant for a short while. This time, Brother She will teach him a lesson. Kui Shiming, who was standing on the side, said casually. Yi Xian paused for a second. That's not going to be easy. You underestimate Brother She too much. Not to mention Yi Chen, even young Master North Snow and young Master Duanmu might not be able to win against Brother She. He has already reached the real child-level power. He only needs the title of child. After saying these words, Kui Shiming felt very proud. He knew that once Shapotian attacked, he would definitely make his opponent pay a great price. As for what the price would be, he didn't know. However, he knew that he had to work even harder in the future. Yi Xian was very talented, and her current power was almost the same as his. It was very likely that she would surpass him in the future, which made him feel a bit threatened. Yu, would like to challenge the core disciple of the Rudra Martial School, Nangong Yun. As another round of sparring ended, from the North Snow Martial Academy, Blade Yu suddenly walked out and challenged Rain Man Nangong Yun. It's Blade Yu. Before Lynch grew up, he was recognized as the second most powerful warrior among the young generation in the North Snow Martial Academy. Yu's blade skills are extremely powerful. Although Lynch has caught up with him, he still might not be able to beat him. But Rain Man Nangong Yun is not bad either. I heard that he has received the teachings of the leader of the Rudra Martial School, and is training the Sky Holy Water spell. Sky Holy Water spell? Isn't it the early stage of the South Rudra Martial School's most powerful spell? Everyone was talking about it. Although the sparring between Yi Chen and Cheng Jun was very interesting, it was not a child-level battle after all. Currently, other than young Master North Snow and young Master Duanmu, there were Shapotian and Liu Wuxiang from the Emerald Martial Palace, Qin Yulian from the South Rudra Martial School, Zhumai from the Sky Cloud Martial School, Ouyang Lai from the Purple Sun Martial School, and Lynch from the North Snow Martial Academy. The others could only be considered as potential child-level warriors. Blade Yu and Rain Man Nangong Yun were one of them. Of course, although it was widely acknowledged, there were still some inaccuracies. Maybe the child-level warriors were not that powerful, and the potential child-level warriors were the real child-level warriors. Nangong Yun walked out with a smile on his face. Yu, I knew you would challenge me. The fight from half a year ago is not over yet. That's right. We have to find a winner in this fight. There are too many powerful warriors nowadays. If we don't work hard to break through, there will be no place for us. Yu was more than 2 meters tall, with a strong and sturdy waist. As he stood there, a powerful blade aura spread out in all directions. It was as if he had turned into a blade, a heavy and fast blade, ready to launch a fatal attack at any time. Nangong Yun said seriously, if that's the case, then let's do it. I also hope to find a breakthrough from the pressure. Crazy demon blade. Yu was like a ferocious tiger. He took a step forward, and the distance of dozens of steps was completely ignored. His blade split the air open, and along with the illusory blade shadows, he hacked towards Nangongyun. Chin. Nangongyun waved her hand, and a wave of water-like Zhenqi spread out. It turned into dozens of transparent sword lights in the air, flying towards the blade shadows. Seeing Nangongyun's attack, Yi Chen was shocked. What a great skill. She has refined her Zhenqi to be like water, but heavier than water. Just like heavy water, one drop of Zhenqi would weigh hundreds of pounds, and dozens of drops would be almost impossible to block. Luo Hanshan, who was quite knowledgeable, explained to Yi Chen, the leader of the Rudra martial school has a very mysterious background, no one knows where she came from. She rose to power in a mysterious way, then founded one of the top 5 martial institutions, the Rudra martial school. The most powerful martial art of the Rudra martial school is called the holy water spell. It is very magical. It is said that once you cultivate it to the extreme, a single drop of Zhenqi can weigh tens of thousands of pounds, and you can even control the rain and increase the amount of water in a certain area. This holy water spell is the early stage of the holy water spell. It should only have 1/5 of the power of the Rudra martial school, but it is still very powerful. Yi Chen nodded. He had heard about the leader of the Rudra martial school before. Although she was a woman, she was as ambitious as any man. She had built the Rudra martial school into one of the top 5 martial institutions. In terms of overall power, she was even slightly stronger than the Sky Cloud martial school. Of course, the Sky Cloud martial school was actually very powerful before. However, after being tricked by the Purple Sun martial school, they lost a lot of their powerful martial artists and fell from rank 8 to rank 9. Even now, they were still trying to recover. Facing the powerful Zhenqi, Yu Yu was not afraid at all. He waved his heavy long blade and the strong blade light made the water splash. 8 mountain-breaking movements. Suddenly, Yu Yu leapt up and threw out a normal-looking blade attack. Puff! Nangongyun's Zhenqi was cut open layer by layer, and the cracks spread quickly. Some of the Zhenqi in the shape of water drops even fell on the ground, creating thousands of holes. Water curtain combined. Taking 3 steps back, Nangongyun put her palms together and pushed forward. Hualala! The rest of the Zhenqi turned into a water ball and clashed with Yu Yu's long blade, forcing Yu Yu to take dozens of steps back. Chapter 129. Great! The Sky Holy Water spell is indeed worthy of its reputation. Now, take my second movement. With a single kick, the blade aura around Yu Yu's body became even more aggressive. He held the blade in his hand and swung it horizontally. Woo woo woo, the blade light was as fast as lightning, it covered a distance of 20 steps in just one attack. Nangongyun did not dare to underestimate the attacking power of the blade light. The water Zhenqi around his body suddenly increased by a few times. It looked like a stream of water between him and the blade light. Boom! The water formed by the Zhenqi shot out in all directions. Each drop of water was extremely destructive. It could easily kill a normal mid-condensing reality realm warrior. Third movement. Yu Yu was about to attack for the 3rd time. Yu Yu, do you really think you can beat me? Water Wolf 10 Shadow Kill. Nangongyun did not wait for his opponent to attack, he drew a circle in front of him with his right arm. The surging water Zhenqi came out of the circle, it turned into countless evil wolves that jumped towards Yu Yu. Crack! One of the wolves jumped on Yu Yu's body, it bit a hole in his protective Zhenqi. Yu Yu laughed, his body shook, the wolf formed from Zhenqi was shattered. The long blade in his hand was not slow at all, he slashed at the heads of the wolves that jumped on him. Water Wolf 100 Shadow Kill. The previous move was just a buffer for the next move. With enough time, Nangongyun's body emitted a domineering aura that was different from his appearance. His gentle face also became stern, both of his hands simultaneously drew a circle, the majestic water wave Zhenqi compressed into a ball, and rushed out. A woo, a woo, a woo. The water ball that was half the size of a human suddenly exploded, dozens of calf-sized evil wolves jumped towards Yu Yu. That horrifying aura made some of the young warriors with lower cultivation turn pale. They thought to themselves, if they had to face this attack, not even their bones would be left. Yu Yu looked extremely serious. His opponent was even more powerful than he had imagined. However, He was born with a wild aura, he was not scared at all. He roared and rushed up. Fourth movement. Fifth movement. Sixth movement. Seventh mountain splitter. Brandishing his blade 4 times in a row, the wolves formed from Zhenqi exploded one after another, leaving only a few big and small cats. However, the situation was even more dangerous than before. Nangong Yun's imposing aura was even more vigorous and powerful, and a prehistoric evil qi burst out from his body. Rumble. The ground around Nangong Yun's body started to shake. The water ripples around Nangong Yun's body started to expand and change shape, as if some kind of powerful creature was about to be born and devour everything. He couldn't wait any longer. Yu Yu's scalp went numb. He knew that if he continued to wait, he would be in a very bad situation. Surging pure qi gathered in his arms, Yu Yu raised both of his hands up high. The ferocious blade aura caused the air to become chaotic, forming a huge whirlpool. Mountain Splitter 8. As the saber slashed out, the airflow around Nangong Yu abruptly split apart. It was as if the airflow had solidified. It was clear how powerful the saber's oppressive force was. Nangong Yun's clothes fluttered in the wind as she suddenly twisted her hands. Tiger shark break. Rumble. The water ripples finally condensed and turned into a 20 meters long terrifying tiger shark. The tiger shark shook its head and tail. Not only did it swallow the saber light, it also swallowed Yu Yu. Ouyang Ming gasped. How could this Nangong Yun be so powerful as well? Besides the fact that they were evenly matched at the beginning, she had been suppressing Yu Yu. Materializing Zhenqi is indeed powerful. It was also Yi Chen's first time witnessing a battle of this level. It was indeed not something a normal peak-late condensing reality realm warrior could compare with. Pop! The tiger shark's tail suddenly exploded. A beam of saber light landed on Nangong Yun's protective Zhenqi layer. Nangong Yun's face turned pale as blood leaked out from the corner of her mouth. Her body was pushed back for more than 10 steps. She then looked at Yu Yu. Right now, he was bleeding from all 7 of his orifices. He had finally broken the tiger shark with a single attack. He stood there without moving, looking extremely aggressive. You are much more powerful than half a year ago, Nangong Yun said slowly. Yu Yu grinned. Unfortunately, I lost to you. Before he could finish, Yu Yu puked out a mouthful of blood. His face turned pale. Nangong Yun shook her head. I had also exhausted all my abilities. Let's call it a draw. A loss is a loss. Who do you think I am? Just keep working hard. I will not lose again next time. It seemed like Yu Yu was quite injured. He was staggering a bit when he turned around. Nangong Yun smiled and went back to her seat. Your saber was a bit slow, otherwise you could have broken the Zhenqi tiger shark. As Yu Yu sat down, Lynch suddenly said. Yu Yu was a bit shocked. He took a deep look at Lynch. The head elder of the North Snow Martial Academy smiled. Although Yu Yu had lost, at least he had injured Nangong Yun, which was not too bad. Besides, they still had Lynch, who was even more powerful. Shapotian was a bit surprised by Nangong Yun's power, but he didn't care too much about it. In this competition, he only wanted to beat 2 people. One was Lu Hanshan, who used to be one of the top 4 childs. Only by beating him would he be able to inherit the title of child. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a proper title. He was quite confident about this. He only needed to go through the formality. Of course, before that, he needed to take care of Yi Chen first, destroy his half-step sword intent, and make him wish he was dead. Unfortunately, it was not the right time yet. If he challenged Yi Chen right away, people would easily think that he was trying to take revenge for Cheng Jun by challenging Yi Chen on purpose. In this way, Yi Chen would be able to seize the opportunity to refuse the challenge. He could even use the excuse that he had consumed too much of his power and hadn't fully recovered yet. Those people who were watching the fight would definitely stand on his side. If he didn't attack, then he would leave no room for his opponent to retreat. Chem. I'll let you be arrogant for a bit longer. Shapotian tried his best to control his impulsive emotions. The competition was a friendly competition between disciples from all the top martial institutions and powerful forces. It could not only make the disciples feel pressured, but also help them learn something from the intense fights. Even if they couldn't make a breakthrough right now, They could still strengthen themselves and prepare for future breakthroughs. At this moment, a disciple challenged Yuan Shuemei. The crowd looked over and saw that he was wearing a yellow robe with a black snake pattern embroidered on his sleeves. It was the symbol of the Black Snake Martial School, one of the 4 rank 9 institutions in the Windy Nation. It turned out that this person was the head disciple of the Black Snake Martial School. He knew that he had no chance of winning against the other disciples from the top martial institutions. Only Yuan Shuemei, who was not that famous, seemed to be a bit easier to deal with. If he could beat her, it would be a great honor. After all, beating a top disciple from a top martial institution was something that not many people could do. Yuan Shuemei smiled. She had been waiting for someone to challenge her for a long time, in case the others would think that she was a pushover. Spring lingering. She threw out a sword attack. Fine sword lights were like the spring breeze or the rain, softly and powerlessly coiling around her opponent's protective Zhenqi. Puff, 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 puff. This seemingly soft sword attack immediately released a shocking power. That Black Snake Martial School's head disciple's protective Zhenqi was like a piece of tofu, full of holes. Yi Chen raised his eyebrows. This time, Yuan Shuemei must have used the Rudra Martial School's 4 seasons sword art. It seemed that after her cultivation had improved, the Rudra Martial School had also started to focus on training her. They had even made an exception and taught her the 4 seasons sword art, instead of the 4 seasons rain sword art. After dozens of attacks, the head disciple couldn't even touch the corner of Yuan Shuemei's clothes. Instead, he was so embarrassed that he had to give up and leave the stage. All of a sudden, the Baohua Square, which had been filled with discussions, suddenly quieted down. Everyone saw Ouyang Ming, the second core disciple of the Purple Sun Martial School, walk up to the stage. It's Ouyang Ming, another child-level warrior. Who is he going to challenge? Is it Liu Wuxiang from the Emerald Martial School or Shapotian? How is that possible? The Purple Sun Martial School and the Emerald Martial School have been very close in recent years. Their disciples often gather together. It's not very likely for them to fight against each other. I think he is going to challenge Luo Hanshan from the Sky Cloud Martial School, Child Hanshan. Why didn't I think of this? Although Luo Hanshan is not as powerful as he used to be, his reputation is still there. If he can't beat him, no one will be able to take away the child title. Hearing the discussions around him, Ouyang Ming sneered while looking at Luo Hanshan. Luo Hanshan, today, you will give up your child title. How can people accept you if you keep taking it? Luo Hanshan walked up expressionlessly and said, the child title is not a big deal to me, but if you want to take it away, you will have to ask me first. Haha, do you think it's still 2 years ago? With your current power, you don't deserve the child title anymore. It's time for someone more powerful to take it. Ouyang Ming sneered. Since you are so confident, come and take it. I'm just afraid that you will not be able to accept the result. Luo Hanshan was standing 30 steps in front of Ouyang Ming. He was wearing a blue robe and had no weapon in his hands. He looked very calm, neither humble nor arrogant, just like a mountain that had been through a lot, and was calmly facing everything. Yi Chen said to Xu Jing, Brother Luo, it seems like you have hidden your strength quite well. Xu Jing said, you saw it. Just intuition. Although I don't like Ouyang Ming, his power is indeed very powerful. I'm afraid it will be a tough fight. Yi Chen scanned the two of them with his soul power, and sensed that they were completely opposite. If Luo Hanshan was a quiet mountain, or a rock in the ocean, then Ouyang Ming would be a violent volcano that could erupt at any time and burn everything in its path. If you can take this kick without stepping back, then you are qualified for me to use all of my power. Ouyang Ming's body floated up into the air, giving people a very gentle feeling. However, as he threw out his kick, that feeling completely changed. This kick was like an erupting volcano, accompanied by thunderbolts and raging floods. The violent power made people feel like a natural disaster was coming, which made people feel very nervous and anxious. It's just a kick, I'll take it. Luo Hanshan's pupils suddenly changed color, and a strong purple light spurted out from his eyes. Behind his back, a bridge-like purple mist appeared, reaching to the void behind him, as if it was trying to bring something terrifying over and strengthen itself. The 9th level of the purple extreme art, purple chi from the east. The head elder popped up his eyes and said word by word. Hearing this, Yi Chen seemed to be thinking about something. The purple extreme art was the most magical one among all the low-rank Earth Realm martial arts of the Sky Cloud Martial School. The 8th level was called Purple Eyes Ice Heart, and the 9th level was called Purple Chi from the east. Once a martial artist reached the 9th level, he or she would be able to draw purple chi from the void into his or her body and increase his or her fighting power. It was said that once a martial artist reached the peak of the 9th level of the purple extreme art, he or she would be able to draw a purple lotus, which would protect his or her body and greatly increase his or her defensive power. Chapter 130. Boom, 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 boom. Although it was only a single kick, it gave people a feeling that it was continuous and fierce. The kick was launched towards Lu Hanshan, but Lu Hanshan remained perfectly still. He reached out both of his hands and merged a large amount of yuan qi into the purple mist, forming a huge millstone that blocked the volcanic kick. In the next moment, dazzling purple light and red light burst out, so dazzling that people couldn't even look at them directly, followed by a thunderous boom that even shook the surrounding space. He blocked it. Lu Hanshan blocked it. Judging from the situation just now, Lu Hanshan has reached the 9th level of the purple extreme art. No wonder he is confident enough to fight against Ouyang Ming. Even the former young master Hanshan has started to show his power. He will never allow anyone to take away his title. Indeed, Lu Hanshan is a powerful man after all. Even if he is temporarily left behind, he can still last longer than ordinary people. Although most of the people were slightly surprised, they were not too surprised. After all, young master Hanshan was a famous man. Not to mention that Ouyang Ming wanted to force Lu Hanshan back with only a single kick. But they still didn't know how much of Ouyang Ming's power had actually been released. Liu Wuxiang, who had fought against Lu Hanshan 3 times before, smiled and thought to himself, I only used 80% of my power back then, but now you are qualified to be on the same level as me. The head elder of the Purple Sun Martial School had a gloomy look on his face. He thought that Ouyang Ming would be able to easily defeat Luo Hanshan, but he never thought that Ouyang Ming would suddenly regain his former glory. Although Ouyang Ming's cultivation hadn't improved by much, his purple extreme art had actually broken through to the 9th level. Fortunately, it was not the peak of the 9th level, otherwise, he would have been able to control the purple lotus and would have been undefeatable, unless there was a huge gap between their power levels. The Sky Cloud Martial School has started to rise. Another Purple Sun Martial School elder said worriedly. Snorting coldly, the head elder of the Purple Sun Martial School said through his Zhen Qi, Zhu Liang has already planned to kill that kid named Yi Chen, but he was lucky and escaped this time. But next time, he won't be so lucky. Let him kill Luo Hanshan as well, that'll be the end of the Sky Cloud Martial School. We'll make sure that the Sky Cloud Martial School will never be able to rise again for the rest of their lives. Indeed, once the Sky Cloud Martial School rises again, they will definitely come after us. Therefore, we have to kill them all. The voices of the two converged into a single line, and did not spread out. However, Yi Chen could sense that chilling killing intent. These 2 old men must be up to no good, I wonder if they are targeting me. Yi Chen's eyes landed on the battlefield as he started calculating. He was quite confident in his senses. As long as someone showed a slight hint of killing intent towards him, he would be able to sense it. However, as a late clasping Yuan realm warrior, he was still quite powerful. That layer of killing intent only flashed for a second before it disappeared. Smiling bitterly, Yi Chen shook his head silently. He was still. He was at the bottom of the Wind Martial Nation. He could only protect himself after he reached the clasping realm. If they wanted to kill him, he would. He was thinking of this. Yi Chen couldn't help but feel a bit absent-minded. Clasping Yuan realm martial artists might be able to walk around in the Windy Nation, but compared to the entire South Rudra region, or even the entire True Spirit continent, they were nothing. Above the clasping Yuan realm was the astral reaching realm, where a martial artist could easily destroy a small martial institution. Above the astral reaching realm was the Sea of Souls realm, where a martial artist could be considered as a powerful being. They had the power to destroy the terrain, and their Zhen-Qi was like an endless ocean. Above the astral reaching realm was the Life and Death realm martial artists. Life and Death realm martial artists could be crowned as kings, such as Shu King, Evil King, Xianhu, Dragon King, and so on. They were the true kings of the true spirit continent, and they could easily move mountains and oceans. The scariest thing was that Life and Death realm martial artists had already reached the limit of the human body. They could reverse life and death, and as long as there were no accidents, they could live up to 1,000 years old. Apart from this, it was said that Life and Death realm martial artists were extremely hard to kill, as they already had the ability to grow flesh and even regenerate from a single drop of blood. However, even Life and Death stage warriors needed to understand the great Tao of nature. They all wanted to reach a higher level, to reach the legendary level. However, this level was still too far away for Yi Chen. It was not something he could reach at all. If he forced himself to think about it, it would be like biting off more than he could chew. Getting rid of all the distracting thoughts, Yi Chen found that his state of mind seemed to have improved a little bit, and the stable Zhen-Qi inside his body seemed to have become more active. Could it be that only by being ambitious can I have a better future? Yi Chen thought to himself. On the stage, Ouyang Ming didn't continue to attack. Instead, the disdainful look on his face had turned into one of caution. The kick he launched just now contained almost 90% of his power, but his opponent was able to take it without even taking a step back. Not bad. You actually took a kick from me, Ouyang Ming said while secretly accumulating his power. Lu Hanzhan stared at Ouyang Ming coldly and said, now it's my turn. Great Monument Heavenly King Fis. Without wasting any time, Lu Hanzhan took a step forward. His entire body was covered in purple mist, which was shining brightly. He threw a punch towards Ouyang Ming along with an earth-shattering power. Pop, 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 pop. The air was penetrated layer by layer. A gigantic fist holding a purple monument fiercely pressed towards Ouyang Ming. All of a sudden, the airflow around the fist began to stop, solidify, and then collapse. It's the Great Monument Heavenly King Fis. Our leader has taught this martial skill to Hanzhan as well. The fourth elder showed a joyful look on his face. Normally, core disciples would only be taught one low-rank Earth realm martial skill. Apart from the strict control on the circulation of secret martial skills, the most important reason was to prevent core disciples from being distracted. After all, it was already very difficult to learn one martial skill, and it was not wise to learn two at the same time. In the end, a core disciple would only be mediocre and not outstanding in any aspect. Therefore, it was better to learn one martial skill first, and then learn the other martial skills after reaching the peak of the first one. The fact that Lu Hanzhan was able to learn the second low-rank Earth realm martial skill meant that the leader had already known that Lu Hanzhan had reached the 9th level of the Purple Extreme Art and was qualified to learn the second one. Of course, not everyone would be like this. The school would first test one's loyalty. For some disciples who had second thoughts, no matter how talented they were, the school would not teach them any secret martial skill. However, if they found a low-rank Earth realm martial skill outside, the school would not care about them. At most, they would just remind them that the quality of the martial skill was more important than the quantity. The head elder slightly nodded. With the Great Monument Heavenly King Fist, Lu Hanzhan basically had the power to fight against child-level opponents. Break. Ouyang Ming threw a flying kick. The volcanic shadow of his leg transformed into a gigantic blade and hacked on the fist and the monument. Clang. The fist paused for a second, and there seemed to be a crack on the monument. However, it was still moving towards Ouyang Ming. Ouyang Ming's face darkened. Finally, all of his Zhen-Qi burst out, and a dazzling sun-like light shot up into the sky. Ouyang Ming spun around and flew into the air, then threw a heavy kick on the fist and the monument. Dragon beheading kick. Crack. The Great Monument Heavenly King Fist was broken, but it also forced Ouyang Ming to use all of his power. Blade and leg fusion. Seeing this, Yi Chen frowned. He had already known that Ouyang Ming's blade art was just as powerful as his leg art. However, for a warrior, It was not a good thing to be powerful in all of them. They had to choose one martial skill to focus on. For example, Yi Chen used to focus on fist art and sword art at the same time, and his fist art was still the most powerful one. But now, he focused on sword art, and the fist art was just a supplement. Yi Chen didn't expect that Ouyang Ming would take a different path and merge his leg art with his blade art. From now on, his blade art would be his leg art, and his leg art would be his blade art. His power was even greater than before. But no one knew whether it was because of his own initiative, or because of the dragon beheading kick. After breaking the Great Monument Heavenly King fist with a single kick, Ouyang Ming didn't show any mercy. His body flashed, and tens of fierce kicks were thrown out. Lu Hanshan didn't step back, he launched the Great Monument Heavenly King fist once again, and clashed with Ouyang Ming's kick. Lu Hanshan, lose. Ouyang Ming stomped on the ground, his whole body shot up into the sky, and threw another kick down. Roar. A loud and shrill dragon roar came out. Ouyang Ming's kick directly transformed into a terrifyingly huge blade. On the blade, a broken dragon's body was faintly visible, while the dragon's howl was coming out of its mouth. Hearing this howl, some young warriors who were not powerful enough immediately felt dizzy, as if all of their strength had been sucked out. Ouyang Ming was very confident about the power of the dragon beheading kick. The blade art and leg art that he had been practicing before were actually one, but they were forcibly separated, in order to speed up his cultivation. It was not like what Yi Chen had thought. With his current cultivation, there was no way he could create his own martial art. If he could, he would have become a great master long ago. Except for young Master Emerald, who had already stepped into the clasping Yuan realm, no one in the Windy Nation would be able to rival him, not even one move. East Rising Purple Chi, Great Monument Suppression. The bridge-like purple chi behind Lu Hanshan's back grew brighter and brighter, it almost pierced through his body. After that, a 10-meter-tall purple monument appeared, suppressing this space. On the monument, countless dead warriors were crawling out of the ground, letting out unyielding roars, as if they were trying to return to the real world and regain the glory of the past. This scene was truly shocking. What kind of power is this? It's so scary. Even 10 of me would not be able to rival the 2 of them. I'm afraid that they could crush me into pieces with only a single move. So powerful. I can't even imagine it. I thought that I would be able to compete with them, but now it seems that I was just dreaming. All of those talented young martial artists from those powerful institutions were stunned. They couldn't imagine that a peak-level late condensing reality realm martial artist could release such a great power. Even some early clasping Yuan realm martial artists couldn't be this powerful. In other words, they could definitely compete with early clasping Yuan realm martial artists, and might even be able to kill them. Not only them, even the disciples from those powerful institutions had a serious look on their faces. They stared at the stage without even blinking their eyes, as if they didn't want to miss even the slightest detail. Clang! The dragon-wrapped blade fiercely hacked on the purple monument, causing a sky-shaking boom. Half of the purple monument was cut off, and cracks spread out in all directions. Fortunately, Lu Hanshan managed to block the kick that could instantly kill a peak-level late condensing reality realm martial artist. If he couldn't, Lu Hanshan would surely lose. Lu Hanshan's straight back bent slightly, but his face remained perfectly expressionless. His sharp eyes were fixed on Ouyang Ming through the silhouette of the monument. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.